again.
RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good evening, everyone. And of course, welcome back to another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. Good evening, my darling Sherry. Good evening, Marine Jane. Good evening to everybody out there in the chat. Appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. If you haven't yet, do me a favor, guys. I'd really appreciate it. Hit that like button, hit the thumbs up, hit the red pill, whatever it might be. Means a lot, really helps us out, even more so if you help us out by sharing the show. Ooh, just saw an update on a story I've been waiting to drop so I can finally talk about it. Very good, very, very good. Let me add this into the rotation real quick. Jump to my section on immigration. Okay, we'll put it right here. There we go. All right, guys. So, yes, we're going to be talking about some testimony, some happenings in Minnesota. Of course, we're going to be talking about the Epstein files. And, crazy video that I had never seen before with Kurt Cobain. I thought this was highly relevant given the fact that I've done a couple of shows on his death. Obviously don't believe he committed suicide, and that new autopsy just came out confirming what I've said in the past. So before we get into it, I'm going to ask you to do something very simple. Sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn, because we're going to start this show right now. All right, gang, welcome back. Thank you for being here. Thank you, no matter what platform you're on. I do appreciate you hanging out with us today. I, first of all, want to give a couple of big shout-outs to my friends over here at Pill. They are getting the action started early. Sean Joe, thank you very much for the cookie and the can. Dixie, thank you for the can. And Trump One, thank you for the cookie. All right, so we have a jam-packed show for you today. Plenty to discuss. Plenty to talk about. Lots of happenings taking place in the world. If you guys don't know, maybe you're here for the very first time, or maybe you only show up to my shows, but every Thursday at 4 p.m., I do a show with my good friend Adel Nero, who is also known as 412 and on, over on his channel and Badlands Media. It's called Taking It Back. Every day from 4 to 5, we have a conversation for an hour, and it's always something good. So I would encourage you to go back and maybe check some of the back catalog, or maybe tune into that before you tune in here at 5 on Thursdays, because I really enjoy that. And then also yesterday, if you were here, you realized that I had to cut the show early. 1 hour show. That was difficult to do, but let me tell you, had a great time afterwards. Went and joined General Steve Quast over on Badlands Media for his show Space Revolution. That was the first time I had the opportunity to sit down on any program with him, and I had a wonderful time doing it. Great conversation. I love talking about energy and future or perhaps forbidden technologies, and that's what we ended up having the conversation about. So I would encourage you to go and check that show out too. Listen, we do need to give a quick thank you to the sponsor of today's show, and then we're going to be right back, and we're going to get right into it. The rules of money are quite literally being rewritten right in front of your eyes. And those institutions that control the financial system are not waiting. They're not warning, and they are not wishing. They're acting. Right now, buying gold and silver at an unprecedented pace. You see, they're preparing for something, but the question is, are you? And for nearly a decade, Noble Gold Investments has helped thousands of people protect their wealth with physical gold and silver, because as that world shifts to hard assets, the window to act is closing. So let Noble Gold show you how simple it is to protect yourself and your family. And while everyone else is reacting to the news, Noble Gold clients are already positioned. They understand that when the rules change, you need assets that don't depend on the system. So visit noblegoldinvestments.com/redpill78 and download your free wealth protection kit today. Once again, that's noblegoldinvestments.com/redpill78. The rules are changing. Make sure you're ready. And when you support my sponsors, you support this channel. All right, gang. Thank you very, very much. Let's go ahead and start the show. I wanted to bring you something comical. Now, I'm not like a television watcher. I mean, there are certain things that I watch, but I mean, it'll be something that I don't have cable, I mean to say. Now, I've never seen this program. I guess HGTV. I'm assuming that's like Home and Gardens, maybe. So they do a lot of renovation work. There's this show called Rehab Addict, where this woman who is the host was recorded dropping a racial epithet while she was working on this house. I can't believe that this got out there. I guess her name is Nicole Curtis, but this is a very short clip, and I just had a big laugh when I saw it. So take a listen, because this is a career-ending move in the modern age.
Why? It's my last one. Oh, fart nigger. What the fuck is that I just said? Hey, Nick, you gotta, can you kill that? No, I have 35 minutes. I gotta kill it. Oh, fuck my life.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I mean, who hasn't just casually, accidentally dropped an N-word when you're getting something wrong on your home renovation project? Oh my God. Anyways, all the best to her. Poor girl. You know, I'm sure that they didn't broadcast that. So that means that somebody, I know, like those two words in conjunction with each other. I've never heard that before. This means, in my mind, that somebody who works on the set, like they must have leaked that out there. I don't know. But anyways, hopefully she'll be okay, and hopefully it isn't going to be something that destroys her career. Also, hopefully she doesn't have to do like a capitulation tour and go around and tell people, I swear I'm not racist, because that's just always so lame. All right. Now, this is a story I actually had wanted to show you guys yesterday, but I didn't get a chance to. Just goes to show the changing bureaucracy at HHS and the FDA. Moderna had attempted to bring an experimental flu vaccine to trials, and it appears that the FDA has rejected it. So regulators took issue with the decision that Moderna had made to benchmark their new vaccine against a less effective Fluarix quadrivalent. I believe that's another type of vaccine. So the chief director at the Center of Biologics Evaluation and Research said that Moderna's trial was not sufficiently adequate and well controlled, because comparing it with standard flu shots does not reflect the best available standard of care. Now, Moderna, of course, they're saying, hey, there's nothing wrong with the trial that we did. We think that this flu shot is safe and effective, and we just want the FDA to co-sign us, essentially. But of course, under Robert F. Kennedy Jr., there are no more free rides. And there is not going to be trials that are done which are going to whitewash any potential issues that may arise from these vaccines, from these shots. Don't know anything about this other than it is based on mRNA technology. And so as far as I'm concerned, I'm not interested. Never gotten a flu shot, never plan to, and I don't care who makes it or what the technology is. But I just wanted to say thank you to the FDA. All right, now, this is the story that I mentioned in the headline of tonight's show. We just have gotten our hands on this leaked Russian memo, which appears to be a plan put together by the Russian Federation and Vladimir Putin's government, which would see a return to the U.S. dollar system by Russia. Essentially, it would mean that BRICS is null and void, and this is just another clear indication to the world that the sovereign alliance is real and it is thriving. So the Kremlin has set out a series of proposals that they have already delivered to Donald Trump's government. It would allow Russia to once again embrace the dollar as part of a wide-ranging economic partnership that they hope to make with the Trump administration. And according to an internal Russian document that was allegedly leaked. Now, of course, I think that this is probably a strategic release, but suffice to say, it has not been officially recognized yet. Now, this was a new document. It was drafted this year, and it details 7 points where, in the view of the Kremlin and the Russian Federation, it's a good idea to be in business with the United States of America. Everybody else is doing it. Everybody else is thriving. And if it wasn't for what happened after President Trump left office and, of course, Joe Biden deep sixed the relationship that POTUS had built with them, they never would have been kicked out of the dollar system in the first place. Now, many would argue that the tough on Russia sanctions that have been put in place over the years might have led to what we see right now. But I watch a lot of videos coming out of Russia, and although, of course, they do have issues with, poverty and perhaps people that are living a little rough out in the Russian countryside, it's not a lot different from what we have here. Largely in the cities, people are thriving. Costs are down. The sanctions, which have led to a pullout of American companies, have hurt American companies. There are plenty of Russian brands to fill those gaps. And so it just means that Russia is supporting Russia, which is, of course, benefiting Russia. It is not benefiting the rest of the world. This, of course, would also allow for energy deals to be done not only with the United States, but with plenty of other nations that are feeling a real pinch right now as well. So this economic cooperation between Russia and the United States would see the convergence of our two economies following a deal to end the war in Ukraine, which is, of course, is another pillar of what President Trump has been attempting to do for quite some time. We would have our nations working together to champion fossil fuels, or hydrocarbons if you prefer, over these so-called green alternatives, as well as working in a series of joint Russian and U.S. investments in natural gas, offshore oil, and critical raw materials. Plus, it would equal a major economic windfall for the American companies that would be able to go back into Russia and engage in those economic interests. So this proposal was first circulated among senior Russian officials, and it gives us a previously unreported insight into the deal-making that is happening behind the scenes, the tactics that the Kremlin is hoping to engage in, because these potential economic agreements between the United States and the Russian Federation are being negotiated in order to bring peace to Ukraine. This, of course, could potentially lead to major economic benefits in Ukraine as well. Obviously, President Trump has already made it known to Volodymyr Zelensky and the government of Ukraine that the United States would need to come in and do a bit of business ourselves. If there is peace between Russia and Ukraine, then perhaps it would be a joint venture between the United States and Russia. That would allow Russia to have perhaps a little bit more of a vigorous security guarantee that the Ukrainian government is not going to turn their back on any deal that gets made in the near future. Now, the U.S. has also already proposed a gradual lifting of sanctions as part of any peace agreement that might be made. That would necessarily have to begin if we were going to allow Russia to enter the U.S. dollar system as well. But it's clear that Russia doesn't just want to dip their toes in the economic waters of the United States. They want to be partners, and that is such a wonderful thing. In the meantime, as long as these sanctions are in place, they've got to have a alternative to the U.S. dollar, which is why BRICS has seen the adoption in many different countries around the world. So this would allow them to restore any financial transactions that were previously taking place. And, of course, it would allow for a deepening of the relationship publicly between the United States, Russia, and yes, China would end up being a part of this as well, because right now China is the #1 economic partnership for Russia. And I think that it would also go to dispel a lot of the sort of fear-mongering that people engage in, suggesting that, Russia and China are these big global adversaries, and we have to be worried about constantly going to war with them. In the golden age, in the new world that President Trump is forging with these world leaders, I think that war war is going to be a thing of the past, and economic cooperation in the interest of pushing forward the best interests of each individual sovereign nation is what we're going to be basing the new world on for the future. Now, again, the Kremlin has not officially commented on this, but from the document that was seen, this is what these key interests are. Number one, long-term aviation contracts to modernize Russia's fleet of aircraft, plus potential U.S. participation in Russian manufacturing. Number two, joint oil and liquid natural gas ventures, including offshore and hard-to-recover reserves, which take into account previous U.S. investments and would allow American firms to recover past losses. That is huge. Number three, preferential conditions for U.S. companies to return to the Russian consumer market. Number four, cooperation on nuclear energy, also on AI ventures. Number five, Russia's return to the dollar settlement system, including possibly for Russian energy transactions. Number six, cooperation on raw materials like lithium, copper, nickel, and platinum. And then finally, number seven, working together to push fossil fuels as an alternative to so-called climate-friendly ideology and low-emission solutions that favor China and Europe. It's great to see this internal document recognizing that much of the Green New Deal scam has been designed to push forward the interests of certain nations to the detriment of others. So I cannot wait to see where this goes. Again, I have for a long time believed that, and I know many of you here in the chat do as well, that President Trump has been working with Putin. He's been working with Xi to ensure that the global satanic pedophile system is taken down, and in its place, we can successfully bring in the golden age. Now, I wanted to also show you a, what? Kirill. Let me go to Kirill's account. Ooh. I don't know why that just happened. Kirill Dmitry. Where is his account? Here we go. Kirill Dmitriev. So he said yesterday, well, first of all, here it is. Kirill Dmitriev said in an article from Bricks News yesterday that President Trump has been fighting the satanic wing of the liberal West. Fighting the satanic wing of the liberal West. I mean, that is the most succinct summation of what we've been witnessing President Trump do throughout this entire series of events. Now, this is AI. This is not actually them speaking. So I thought that they were going to have a clip here for it. But I, for one, am looking forward to having relations normalized with Russia. I've always wanted to go to Russia. A couple of years ago, before the Ukraine-Russia war broke out, I was actually invited by the Russian Duma, which is like their version of Congress. They were putting together a sort of cultural exchange. They wanted to bring podcasters and independent journalists from America to meet with podcasters and independent journalists from Russia. And, at the time, there was definitely some tension between Ukraine and Russia. And it felt like it was an effort to maybe, cool the temperature down before anything happened. And unfortunately, they ended up going into Ukraine and the plan was off the table. And so I was unable to go to Russia. I was really, really upset about that. And I'm hoping maybe now that everything is going to be getting back to normal, maybe I will be able to go to Russia because I would like nothing more. Russia is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. The culture, the history, the Orthodox churches, I can't say enough good stuff about it. And it's so vast. It's so huge. It's a lot like the United States in terms of the land and how varied and different the various sectors of Russia are. It's so cool. Yeah, Lisa was like, you're not going to Russia. And I was like, please, please, please. But mostly she was like, you're not going to Russia because there's probably going to be a war. And the last thing you want is to get stuck over there. Anyways, I will let you know if it's even possible for me to go to Russia, but I sincerely hope that that happens. And really, really looking forward to it. Okay, Real quick, guys, before we continue and head on to the next story of the day, I have a very quick message from our friends over here on Rumble. You all know that banks are not your friends. They can freeze your accounts, they can shut off your cards, they can lock you out of your own money, they can do it overnight because banks do not protect you. They control you. And that's why real financial freedom starts with ownership. So introducing Rumble Wallet. It's a non-custodial wallet built for people who refuse to give up control. With Rumble Wallet, you don't just buy digital currency like Bitcoin and Tether. You can also own Tether Gold. It is real gold on the blockchain. And through Tether Gold, you can get direct ownership of physical gold bars, each one fully allocated, verifiable with the serial number, purity, and weight. It's not paper gold. It's not an IOU. This is real gold without bank vaults, storage fees, or gatekeepers. You can buy, sell, or move it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when traditional gold markets are closed. And if you want, Tether Gold can also be redeemed for that physical gold. That is very powerful. And when you support content creators on Rumble, you can tip them directly using that Rumble wallet. It's peer-to-peer. Completely outside the banking system. There's no permissions. There's no middlemen, no cancel button. The wallet is yours forever. So if you're on Rumble, use that QR code or the link that you see in the chat, or anybody else can head to wallet.rumble.com or just look for the Rumble wallet in the App Store on your phone. And thank you very much to the people who have used it to support me, because when you donate through there, there's no fees that come out of it. Let me say thank you to Lee Walden. Ahoy, Zach and crew. Terrific news with the EPA. Looking forward to water and air and the rest. Amazing what sunlight can do. Looking forward to flying cars and the real awakening for all. I'm looking forward to that as well. Let's see. Ginger Because says BRICS was to sustain them while our Federal Reserve got taken out and our economy was iffy. Now they don't need it. It served its purpose, all according to plan. I definitely agree with you. BRICS was a stopgap to ensure that they would still have access to financial markets and rest of the world, payment systems, and all of that. Now, let's see what happens here in the United States. For a while there, I was hoping that President Trump would just say, you know what, we're just going to join BRICS. Who knows? They might even still do that. But yeah, we're moving into a different age. Gotta love it. All right, so John Thune has finally signed on as a co-sponsor of the SAVE Act. However, there are not enough votes to get the SAVE Act passed in the Senate unless he does something creative. We've talked about a couple of those different options. But yesterday, the U.S. House of Representatives, once again, I want to say this is like the third or the fourth time, was able to pass the SAVE Act. This is the legislation that's now going to require documentary proof of U.S. citizenship so you can vote in federal elections. You must now have a voter ID to cast a ballot, or you will once this finally makes its way through the Senate. As we said yesterday, the final vote tally in the House came to 218 to 213. Democrat Henry Cuellar, who is the Texas Democrat that President Trump recently pardoned, I believe Henry Cuellar's vote was likely a payback for President Trump to have the SAVE Act guaranteed to pass through. And every other Democrat voted against the measure. And, of course, the Democrats are telling their party that the SAVE Act is essentially Jim Crow 2.0, that by making people have a voter ID, it's akin to a poll tax. By having to prove your citizenship, that is an undue burden. One of the most retarded arguments that I've ever heard. I don't normally play clips from CNN, but I saw this clip earlier of a woman on CNN who was making these arguments, and it was just completely unhinged, disconnected from reality. Let me see if I can find it. I don't think I bookmarked it, but I saw it going around earlier. No, well, you know what? I can probably go to like this account and I bet you I'll see that they shared it. Okay, so the majority of Republicans want the SAVE Act to pass in the Senate. And as it's set up right now, we need 60 votes, which means that you also need like 10 Democrats to come over and vote for it as well. In recent weeks, John Thune has kind of been wavering on his support for the SAVE Act. There would necessarily need to be a rules change or a invocation of perhaps different rules if it was to pass with a simple majority. The 60-vote filibuster is basically screwing us on getting this passed through right now. And up until today, John Thune had not directly thrown his support behind the SAVE Act. He said, oh, of course, I want people to lawfully vote in American elections. I don't want anybody but American citizens to vote in elections. So why did he not sign on as a co-sponsor? We've got 44 senators, and all Republicans, who have agreed to co-sponsor the bill. Actually, I believe that John Fetterman, maybe the only Democrat who is signing on as a co-sponsor as well. But yesterday, Anna Paulina Luna had suggested that Thune basically was a jellyfish, not having a spine is what I mean to say, and that he essentially was not going to support the SAVE Act, and she said that that was very disturbing. She basically accused John Thune of using President Trump's name to ride into office, and I would agree with that. But then once it came necessary for President Trump to be able to count on him to get support for something that overwhelmingly the American people are behind, John Thune was not doing anything about it. So Mike Lee announced that John Thune has, in fact, now signed on to co-sponsor. That is 45. So we need, at a minimum, we need the rest of the Republican caucus to get on there. And if they do that simple rule adjustment, then J.D. Vance would be able to cast the tie-breaking vote, and we could potentially pass it 51-50. So we'll see where this goes, but we are one step closer to having the SAVE Act pass. Now, perhaps it's because he saw this report right here, which seems to indicate that there is a massive, massive problem when it comes to elections here in the United States of America, as if you didn't already know. But somebody like John Thune, living in an ivory tower, who's never worked a day in his life other than being a politician who's schmoozed and been bought and paid for by lobbying dollars, he really doesn't understand what we're up against. Now, since 2004, the Social Security Administration has provided a very simple tool to every single state in the union. This allows them to verify voter applications. It's called the HAV system, H-A-V-V. Now, using this HAV system, states send the name, the date of birth, and the last 4 digits of the Social Security number for the person who is registered to vote. That allows them to verify whether or not that's a real person, that's a living person, or to determine whether or not it is a fraudulent voter registration. The Social Security Administration will then notify the state whether that person is in fact dead, alive, if they match anybody on the Social Security Administration, or if they are a ghost. They're not even in there. A whopping 13% of all HAV verifications processed since 2025 came back as no match, meaning that 13% of those who registered to vote in 2025, well, since 2025, no, I guess this is only 2025, are simply not real people. That is 318,217 individuals. There were a total of 2.37 million new voter registrations that were submitted. It gets worse the farther back you go. If you go back to 2011, since 2011, you've had nearly 30% of all submissions that have also come back as no match, 28.8%. So for the past 15 years, the federal government at the Social Security Administration has been physically unable to match 28.1 million voter submissions coming in from all 50 states. So this information in their system should be used by every single state in the nation to ensure that they are not allowing fake people, dead people, illegal people to vote. The computer system was bought and paid for by you, the American taxpayer, and it was done because there's a problem that is known to exist with fraudulent voter registration applications being submitted. This government has every right, as do we, to ensure that those who are registered to vote are legally and lawfully allowed to vote. Now, the percentage of those who cannot be identified within the Social Security Administration database should shock anyone. Of course, I think most of us here accept and expect that these are the types of results that we're going to see. But I want you to remember that for generations, we've been told that, oh, voter fraud is just something that doesn't exist. Election fraud is exceedingly rare. But I wonder if, like, a total normie were to hear that 30% of all voter registrations from the last 15 years cannot be matched to anybody. There are simply not people in the United States of America who were born here, who live here, who work here, who exist in society, and who don't have a social security number. There may be a handful of outliers, but I would suggest that those handful of outliers perhaps are not even bothering to vote. And it's not like you can say all 2.37 million of these people all 28 million of these people are simply Amish or something like that. Because even the Amish know how to figure out how to vote. They know that you're going to have to get yourself a birth certificate. You're going to have to get yourself registered if you want to participate in the system. There's just a lot of them that don't even care to do so because they want to live a frugal and simple life. But the percentages are most certainly the justification that the federal government and the DOJ needs to gain access to any voter roll in any state. That includes the voter's social security number in full. We've had judges in all of the regular offenders, Michigan, Oregon, and California, toss out the DOJ's cases for these voter rolls. Just yesterday in Michigan, Harmeet Dillon's case to get the voter rolls in the state of Michigan, because Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson fought it, kicked out the case that the DOJ had filed. So now the HAVV, the HAV program, was created so that we can process new voters who cannot provide a valid driver's license during registration. It accounts for the fact that maybe somebody isn't going to have an ID, but they're going to want to try to get registered anyways. So the amount of non-mass matches, which are people who are not even in the system, is exactly the justification and the reasoning for why the SAVE Act is so important. And there are plenty of other reasons, but let's just stick with 28 million registered voters who don't seem to exist. The federal government should have the right to be able to verify that these people are real. And we, the people, have the right to demand that everybody who's registered to vote will have a verification process to ensure that they are real. Now, if you take a look at these 2025 voter verification submissions, you can see that many states have a major problem. And it looks to me like, in terms of percentages, Maryland is the worst offender. 97% of non-matches were made in Maryland. You had 68,410 total verification, voter registration verifications that were submitted, and 66,000 of them simply are just not in the system. You look at Alabama, you had 51,000, and 21,000 of them didn't match. That's over 40%. Many of these states don't have any problems at all. Alaska, not a big deal. They only had 553. But in comparison, that's just under 20%. Arkansas, they had just under 15%. But any percentage in any state is a problem, and it deserves to be looked at. Strangely enough, Pennsylvania seems to be very low. They only had 4.1%. Nearly 500,000 voter verifications were done. Only around 20,000 of them were found to have no matches. But overall, 28.8%. So this is a big problem. This needs to be addressed. It's the reason why the SAVE Act has got to pass. If anybody out here is in a state where you have I don't care if it's a Republican or if it's a Democrat, they need to be on the ball, and they need to get behind this, because there is many different things that are wrong with our election system, but passing the SAVE Act is crucial to ensuring that we can fix all of them. All right, now, take a look at this. Kristi Noem did a press conference earlier today I believe this was, well, I thought this was in Maricopa, or excuse me, not Maricopa, in Arizona. But let's take a listen. She's talking about a massive seizure of narcotics taken off the streets that looks like she's standing in front of it.
Just in this bin in front of you, you see enough lethal doses of fentanyl that would kill 10 million Americans if it were to be allowed to come into our country, be tracked.
That is a hell of a lot of drugs. I mean, assuming that each of those boxes are filled with drugs, each of those bags are filled with drugs, that's a lot of drugs.
Affect and poison our people. For 4 dark years under Joe Biden, we saw violent criminals, murderers, gang members, terrorists, rapists, pedophiles, and human smugglers invade this country. Drug traffickers brought dangerous narcotics into our country and poisoned our people and tore our communities apart. But the American people put President Trump back into office. They removed criminal, illegal aliens from our communities. They've stopped the cartels, and they've stopped the flow of these dangerous drugs. And what the men and women of the Department of Homeland Security have done is a testimony to President Trump's leadership and to these law enforcement officers' dedication. For 9 straight months, U.S. Border Patrol has released 0 illegal aliens into the United States. With fewer people that cross illegally, we make sure that our southern border apprehensions were much lower than during the Biden administration. In fact, 93% lower than during that administration. President Trump has cut off the flow of trafficking down at the southern border, and just of fentanyl, we've seen a decrease of 56% drop in fentanyl coming into this country. The vault that we've toured today holds one.
I think the sirens are there because they just literally did a bust. I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense to me.
188,218 pounds of seized illicit drugs. That inventory includes over 100,000 pounds of meth, 59,000 pounds of cocaine, and 7,400 pounds of fentanyl. In other words, that vault holds more than 1.7 billion lethal doses of narcotics, of fentanyl.
So I had heard that Kristi Noem was going to be doing a press conference today, and I was told that it was going to be in Arizona. I was really hoping that it was going to be an announcement of a raid on Maricopa County. We don't have that, but continuing to look for that. All right, now, this is President Trump speaking about the passage of the SAVE Act. He's heralding the fact that it made it once again through the House and demanding that the Senate pass it. I've also just seen a suggestion that Lisa Murkowski is looking to leave the Republican Party because she can't get along with President Trump and because we all hate her.
It's the Save America Act, and the Democrats are against it. I heard one of them say, we will stop the Save America Act. No, we're trying to save America. And it has to do with largely voting. And basically, it's got 3 very simple points. It's got voter ID, photo ID, but voter ID with a photo, right? It's got the confirmation of U.S. citizenship. You have to be a citizen. So you have a vote, you have an ID. That's about a 99% one, and I think 90% with Democrats. Then you have confirmation U.S. citizenship. That's about a 99% one with Republicans, about 86% with Democrats, except Democrat politicians because they cheat on elections. And then you have no mail-in ballots. And there would be no mail-in ballots, very important. You know, we're the only country in the world that does a system like we do. We're the only country in the world that has mail-in ballots. The way we do this is unbelievable. It guarantees cheating. So it's no mail-in ballots with the exception of disability, illness, military, or if you're traveling, you can get an exemption. You know, if you happen to be out of the country for a good reason, you can have an exemption. So with exceptions, it's no mail-in ballots, and that will assure the security of our crooked elections. We have crooked elections, yeah.
This has to go through, but we've got a big uphill battle. Let me say thank you to Artsy Joan, who says, just showing off my avatar. What's done so far is LOL. Great show. God bless. Damn Rumble, not showing my new avatar of Muffin. Sorry. Trying again. Oh, is this the picture that you're doing of Muffin and Chi-Chi? Oh my gosh, it's so good. I can tell already. And then well, thank you, Joan. Then Lee Walden says, can we demand that all voter rolls be purged before any upcoming election? I mean, I feel like the demand is already there, and that's what the DOJ was doing. They were going state by state, and that's why they were requesting the voter rolls, is so that they could be purged. All of the states have the responsibility to purge the voter rolls on a regular basis. And in all those states where we know fraud took place, they simply weren't doing that. So this is happening, Lee. It's just not happening as quickly as I would like. Jim Kyle says, Zach, back in the 70s, my girlfriend from Colombia was using a social security number from a relative. I thought her name was Gloria, but found out it was Martha. Well, I'm glad that things worked out well for you. I just heard about a guy who was dating an illegal for 10 years, and he was just charged with harboring an illegal alien. The dude is looking at 10 years in prison. That is a tough road, and I hope the poontang was worth it. All right. Now, we also have learned that a federal judge earlier today has rejected the Secretary of War's bid to demote and discipline Democrat Senator Mark Kelly over the Seditious 6 video, which urged U.S. service members to defy orders from President Trump. This is U.S. District Judge Richard Leon. He's an appointee of George W. Bush, and he accused the Trump administration of trying to strip the First Amendment rights of retired military members. You remember last month, Mark Kelly filed a lawsuit against Pete Hegseth, and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth had censured Mark Kelly, cut his military retirement pay over that Seditious 6 video. And obviously, I would imagine that the Secretary of War has got dominion over soldiers, not some district court judge. So this is not the last we're going to hear about it. They also had previously announced they were considering recalling Democrat Senator Mark Kelly, so that way they could just court-martial him. Maybe that's the route they're going to be forced to take. Recently, this announcement that he was moving to demote Mark Kelly and cut his military pension sent a lot of ripples through the deep state. 6 weeks ago, Senator Mark Kelly and 5 other members of Congress released a reckless and seditious video that was clearly intended to undermine good order and military discipline, Pete Hegseth said. As a retired Navy captain who is still receiving a military pension, Captain Kelly knows he is still accountable to military justice and the Department of War, and the American people expect justice. Therefore, in response to Senator Mark Kelly's seditious statements and his pattern of reckless misconduct, the Secretary of War is taking administrative action against Mark Kelly. The department has initiated retirement grade determination proceedings with reduction in his retired grade, resulting in corresponding reduction in retired pay. To ensure this action, the Secretary of War has also issued a formal letter of censure, which outlines the totality of Captain, for now, Kelly's reckless misconduct. I wonder what he's going to get demoted to. Watch him get demoted to private. This censure is a necessary process step and will be placed in Captain Kelly's official and permanent military personnel file. So if they are forced to recall him so that they can court-martial him, I think that that's an even better way to go about it. My good friend Wounds R. Russ, good to see you, hon. She says, I am in Illinois and I have 2 special needs kids, so moving is not an option. I reach out to my Dem reps and senators and told them that I am not stupid and they know better. Fortunately, there is Chicago flips red. Absolutely. Yes. I don't always think that the way to go about fixing the problem is to find someplace else to move, because the truth of the matter is, if all good people move out of one state, then there's nobody left to fight back, and it's just going to remain as corrupt as it was before. So good for you, and we'll keep praying for you, hon, because I know that Illinois is no picnic right now. All right. Thank you also to Sean Joe for 2 cookies. Darla, who says climate change is a hoax. Only climate being changed is the chemtrails doing it. Yep, absolutely. Darla, no, thank you for that. Moon Baby says, thanks for the news. Thank you for that, Darla. And Moon Baby. And then thank you to Sean Joe for a cookie. And then this is the other one from Darla. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks again, Zach and Lisa. Let's go. Appreciate you. All right. Also, Judge James Boasberg is still at it on his mission to destroy everything President Trump and his administration is trying to do to keep us and the rest of America safe. Today, he ordered, once again, the Trump administration to return Venezuelan illegals that have already been deported under the Alien Enemies Act and are currently in countries other than Venezuela. The government shall refile a status report by March 13th explaining how and when it will transmit any plaintiff seeking return to the United States from a third country. In that status report, the government shall also inform the court as to the feasibility of returning plaintiffs still in Venezuela who wish to return for their proceedings, Boasberg wrote. It shall also describe the steps taken to obtain any passports or identification documents from El Salvador. You might remember last March, Boasberg granted a temporary restraining order to stop Trump and the administration from deporting thousands of Venezuelan nationals who are believed to be members of Tren de Aragua using the Alien Enemies Act. Boasberg then threatened to hold Trump officials in contempt for not bringing some of the most vicious of them back into the United States, including murderers and rapists. Boasberg said he found probable cause to hold the Trump administration in criminal contempt of court for defying his order to turn planes around that were carrying dangerous Venezuelan gang members. You've already had a number of judges rule against Trump since Boasberg ordered those planes carrying Venezuelans to turn back from El Salvador. And last year, a federal judge issued a permanent injunction barring the Trump administration from using the Alien Enemies Act to remove these Venezuelan gang members. And U.S. District Judge Fernando Rodriguez, a Trump appointee, called the president's invocation of the Alien Enemies Act unlawful. But according to Jorge Rodriguez, the Alien Enemies Act only applies when the U.S. is at war and under armed attacks. Other federal judges have done the same thing. I could have sworn that we just had a ruling from the Supreme Court which allowed for President Trump to use the Alien Enemies Act. Maybe it's just that it's still waiting for them to rule. I need to look this up. Yeah, so back in April of last year, we had the decision which allowed President Trump to use the Alien Enemies Act. So I don't know how these guys are continuing to do this. Is it just that they're ignoring what the Supreme Court said? Anyways, Judge Boasberg is bad news. One of, the judiciary is one of the biggest problems that we have to overcome because these guys are given lifetime appointments. I mean, honestly, it would be necessary to catch them doing something really bad so that they could be arrested. We have another case where a judge is slamming the administration, ordering the release of 3 convicted murderers and a child sex offender that are currently in ICE custody, putting them back out on the street in Louisiana. It's these guys right here. This is U.S. District Judge John D. Gravelis, and he ordered the release of these 4 men from the newly expanded ICE facility in Louisiana, also known as Camp 57 or Louisiana Lockup. These men were being held pending removal after ICE had re-detained them as part of the Trump administration's aggressive enforcement of existing immigration laws. The aliens in discussion are Ibrahim Ali Mohammed from Ethiopia. He's a convicted sex offender. He was convicted of exploitation of a minor. He was released into the U.S. by the Biden regime and had a final order of removal that was already issued on September 5th, 2024. That right there is his due process. So I don't even understand what the hell this judge is thinking. Then you've got Luis Gaston Sanchez. He's from Cuba. He's being convicted of homicide, assault, resisting an officer, concealing stolen property, and 2 additional counts of robbery. He also has a final order of removal. That was in September of 2001. Then we've got Ricardo Blanco Chomat from Cuba as well, convicted of homicide, kidnapping, aggravated assault with a firearm, burglary, robbery, larceny, and selling cocaine. Because, that's what a lot of those Cubans love to do. Final order of removal issued in March of 2002. And finally, we've got Francisco Rodriguez Romero, also from Cuba, convicted of homicide and a weapons offense. Final order of removal all the way back in May of 1995. So Tricia McLaughlin put out a press release after this radical decision. Can't believe it. Judge John Day Gravelis, appointed by Barack Obama, released 4 violent criminals back onto American communities. And unfortunately, the ramifications will only be the continued rape, murder, assault, and robbery of more American victims. McLaughlin continued, releasing these monsters is inexcusably reckless. President Trump and Secretary Noem are now enforcing the law and arresting illegal aliens who have no right to be in our country. We are applying the law as written. If an immigration judge finds an illegal alien has no right to be in this country, we are going to remove them, period. So these men, again, we're at the Angola, Louisiana lockup under a September partnership between DHS and the state of Louisiana to expand detention space for these dangerous criminals. DHS emphasized that the agency is working rapidly and overtime to remove criminal aliens from the country, even as these judges continue to intervene illegally, in my opinion. These men have now been released from custody because of the decision of the judge, and they're out there on American streets. Don't know if they were given monitors or anything like that, or if they're just out there now free to rob, rape, and murder again. All right. Now, once again, the DHS funding bill has failed in the Senate, which means that DHS, ICE, and a whole bunch of other things that are under their purview, that's going to shut down tomorrow unless something else is done. Now, John Fetterman actually spoke about this issue earlier today in a hearing where I believe ICE Director Todd Lyons was being questioned. But without DHS funding, it means that not only does ICE close down, CBP closes down, the Coast Guard is going to close down, the TSA is going to close down. The funding bill was, of course, needing a 60-vote threshold to invoke cloture under the filibuster rule. Only one Democrat, John Fetterman, was the one to vote in favor of it. So that means 260,000 federal employees are going to be affected, and countless systems in America are also going to be affected as well. God forbid there's a disaster and FEMA is needed to go out there, or maybe a ship gets capsized off the coast of either California or someplace on the East Coast, and the Coast Guard can't go out to save them. Democrats are demanding reforms to ICE. They want to unmask ICE. They want to force them to wear body cameras during immigration raids. They want to force them to obtain warrants from a judge as opposed to just these administrative warrants against criminal illegal aliens, people who already have final orders of removal, and we should be able to wrap them up, arrest them, and kick their asses out of the country at any time. I want to go ahead and play this clip from John Fetterman. And actually, I think I might have it pulled up. Okay, I don't have it pulled up here. So let me go ahead and pop this up. Man, John Fetterman continues to surprise me. I mean, this guy had a stroke. He may not be as eloquent as some of the other members of Congress, but he's a lot more intelligent.
I met with Secretary Noem, and I've always treated her with respect. I met with her in my office, and I refuse and I never will engage on the kinds of sexist kinds of terms like ICE Barbie from a lot of the left media will use those kind of things.
They're just jealous because most of them are brutal, barren, loveless hags.
And now I said, hey, I'm a Democrat, and I say, secure our border? Yeah. And deport all of the criminals? Yeah. You know, I think we can sign up on that. And then my friend, Katie Britt, came to me and said, we want to bring the Laetrile bill there. And I'm like, yeah, I was going to be the Democrat to bring that there. And now we the co-sponsor as the Democrat. So I believe that we should have those kinds of appropriate things. And now
it makes sense to protect American streets, to enforce the laws as they are already on the books. Because otherwise, if you don't enforce the laws, then you shouldn't enforce any of the laws. None of it makes any sense. Now, Tom Homan gave a presser earlier today from Minneapolis, and he said that they are proposing wrapping up Operation Metro Surge. He said, I have proposed and President Trump concurred that this surge operation conclude. This is him speaking at the Whipple Federal Building. Let's take a listen.
With that, and success that has been made arresting public safety threats and other priorities since this surge operation began, as well as the unprecedented levels of coordination we have obtained from state.
Yeah, ICE is not going to shut down, but those other agencies that are funded under DHS, they may go ahead and shut them down as part of the lack of funding. But I don't anticipate that anything is really going to change on the streets. It's more just the ceremonial nature of passing these budgets.
Officials and local law enforcement. I have proposed, and President Trump has concurred, that this surge operation conclude.
DHS is the mother of ICE, CBP, TSA, Coast Guard, all of those things. All of those agencies fall under ICE. Fall under DHS. So not funding DHS starves a number of different agencies from the funding necessary to keep them going. They may still work, but it just means people are not going to get paid.
A significant drawdown has already been underway this week and will continue to the next week. We have a lot of work to do across this country to remove public safety risk who shouldn't even be in this country, and to deliver on President Trump's promise for strong border security and mass deportation. Law enforcement officers drawn down from this surge operation will either return to their duty stations or be assigned elsewhere to achieve just that.
All right, so with the wind down of Operation Metro Surge, it doesn't mean that we are not going to still be arresting people in Minneapolis or in Minnesota. Just means that the number of agents that they have there will no longer be necessary. Now, Tom Homan also said that there are a couple of things that make this possible, such as having ICE agents strategically placed at jails and holding areas where perhaps sheriffs are refusing to work directly with them. They're just going to wait. And when people come out of the jail, then they're just going to arrest them. They don't necessarily need the assistance of these people.
We now have the ability to arrest criminal aliens in the safety and security of jails throughout the state at the time they're being released, like we've done in other states. I've also directed the strategic placement of officers in certain areas throughout the states that can respond quickly to sheriffs that want to release somebody and notify us. We need to be nearby so they don't hold them unnecessarily. So we worked on a strategic plan to reassign officers in those key locations. Arresting a public safety threat in the safety and security of a jail is safer for the alien, it's safer for the officer, and safer for the community. I think we all can agree on that. It requires less resources for at-large operations. It just makes sense. I'll say it again, as I've said many times, we are not asking local law enforcement to act as immigration officers. I don't want them to be immigration officers. We're the immigration officers. We just want them to be cops. We're asking law enforcement to coordinate with other law enforcement to help keep public safety risk out of the communities.
It just makes sense. Now, Tom Homan also said that since Operation Metro Surge began, they have successfully found, located, and saved nearly 4,000 unaccompanied migrant children that went missing during the Biden years. And here is his message for people who would suggest that this is a win for the deep state, that the Trump administration is abandoning their enforcement of immigration policy in Minnesota.
For those that say we are backing down from immigration enforcement or the promise of mass deportations, you are simply wrong. Look at the data. Record number of arrests and deportations under President Trump's first year. And we'll continue that effort. Prioritizing public safety threats and national security threats doesn't mean we forget about everybody else. We will take action on everybody else. That's just a stone cold fact.
Stone cold fact. All right, so he spoke for quite some time But a lot of good things came out of that press conference. Here is him talking about the discovery of those unaccompanied children that were previously missing.
In addition to taking public safety threats off the street, ICE here in this state have located 3,364 missing unaccompanied alien children. Children that the last administration lost and weren't even looking for. That's because of the leadership of President Trump, these children were located. In addition to taking public safety threats off the street.
Beautiful. Never would have happened if it wasn't for POTUS. All right, now the real beauty of this is that while Tom Homan was giving that press conference, Keith Ellison and others from Minnesota were in Congress testifying before a Senate committee. So we're going to watch this stunning line of questioning from Senator Josh Hawley to AG Keith Ellison, because I had a good time with it. Before we do, very briefly, I have a special message from our friends over here on Rumble. You guys, if you still have not yet tried 1775 coffee, now's your shot. The 1775 starter kits are still available, and in those kits, you're going to get their bold dark roast, their smooth medium roast, and their Vitality Mushroom Coffee that gives you clean energy and laser focus without the crash. It is the highest quality coffee you can get. It's all single origin, small batch, toxin-free, mold-free. You're also going to get their gold spoon clip, a very strong frother, and a black 1775 tumbler. It's $170 worth of coffee and gear, and it's all yours for just $99. This is for the people who have watched 1775 blow up on Rumble and wonder if it's actually worth it. It truly is, and to find out for yourself, all you got to do is go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab that starter kit before it's gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. Now, you can use the link in the chat. If you're on Rumble, you can use that QR code on screen, or just head on over to the URL. Thank you very much to them. Also, thank you to Lee Walden, who says, LoJack, the bad guy's being released. I'm sure nature will sort it out. Okay, here is Josh Hawley questioning Keith Ellison. Now, one of the stunning things that came out of this is that Keith Ellison perjured himself while he was being questioned. Josh Hawley knows that Keith Ellison received money from the Feeding Our Future scammers, and that he was also not only in a position to make some investigations go away, but he actually did. So I think that Keith Ellison may be indicted shortly after this testimony.
Mr. Ellison, let me start with you. You're the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota. That's a yes?
Sir, you're aware of my job. You know the answer to that.
You're not going to answer my questions? Are we going to start this way? Are you the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota, yes or no?
You know the answer.
Mr. Ellison, you're in my courtroom now. You're under oath. So I suggest that you answer my questions. You the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the state of Minnesota, yes or no? Let's try another question. Are you familiar with the $9 billion in historic fraud out of your state, including the $250 million in the Feeding Our Future program alone? You familiar with that? Don't turn to the pages in your book to get your potted answers. Are you familiar with it? Yes or no?
Yes, I am familiar with it.
Very familiar, aren't you? Because the people who ran the Feeding Our Futures program came to you in your official office in the state capitol December 11th, 2021, and asked for your help in getting investigators off their backs. They complained to you for upwards of an hour about state investigators going after them, and they begged you to help them, and you agreed to it, amazingly. And we know you did.
That's not
because
true.
It's all caught on tape.
Yeah,
Every single sentence is caught on tape. Here's what
He said, us brothers got to stick together. That's basically what he said. He was like, I'm not trying to help Whitey. I'm trying to help you, my brother, because we both got melanated skin.
you said. Let's take a look. You said, it's not a question. You said to them, send me the names of all these folks who are investigating them. You said to them, send me their names. And I'll take that list and I'll call the person over at Education who was investigating them and say, what's going on? Why am I getting these complaints? Then he went on to say, I already have my team working on this. What day should we get together to discuss it again?
Now, just imagine, if you will, for a moment, Keith Ellison was involved in the Signalgate Antifa scandal that came out recently. Keith Ellison has publicly stated that he was Antifa. He showed up the Antifa handbook. He posted that on his social media. Keith Ellison has been implicated in numerous fraudulent schemes in the state of Minnesota. I don't see how they can't indict this guy. And when they do, they're going to be able to look at all of his communications. They're going to be able to see what his network entails. They're going to be able to see who he was working with, how many other crimes he might have covered up. I mean, Keith Ellison is one of the most obvious and egregious examples of public corruption that I've ever seen. The entirety of the Tim Walz government, his administration, they are neck deep in corruption, payoffs, scandal, crimes, just so obvious.
You made pledge after pledge to them. You said, we've got to make sure this guy who's investigating them stops it. You said, you have my attention. I'm concerned about this. You said, let's go fight these people, meaning the people who were investigating the fraud. Why'd you do it? Why'd you help them?
Are you going to let me answer?
Please, we're all ears.
So first of all, you're cherry picking quotes out of there.
Why did you help them?
I thought you were going to let me answer.
Why did you help them?
Are you going to let me answer?
Why did you help
You
them?
let me answer and I'll answer you.
Tell the truth and I'll let you answer.
I will tell the truth.
Good.
Let's do that.
That'd be a nice change. Why'd you help them?
No, now see, Mr. Chairman, I didn't come here to be insulted. I came here voluntarily.
You came here for the truth. Let's have it. Why did you help them? The quotes are here. They're in black and white, and every member of this audience can listen to the recording. It's 54 minutes long. It's all in public. You can Google it right now and listen to it.
And listen to it all.
Why'd you help them?
First of all, I didn't help them.
You did help them.
No, I did not. I certainly didn't.
You're saying you didn't do anything for them. You didn't.
Well, wait a minute.
I already have my team working on this again. That's not you?
I have my team assisted with the information that led to the prosecution and conviction of these people.
No, you didn't. You didn't lift a finger to prosecute them. No, you did not.
No, because it was a federal prosecution.
You had, BS. You had whistleblowers come to you as early as 2019.
You're the one talking BS.
Hey, listen, it's my time.
Doesn't know what you're talking about, sir.
No, sir. You now have encountered the truth and you don't like it. Why'd you take their money? Why'd you take their money?
I didn't.
You took $10,000.
No, that's a false statement.
$10,000 9 days after the meeting.
False statement.
You took $10,000. Here's what happened. They went to your office.
They
solicited money from you. They solicited help from you.
That's also wrong.
They came to your office. It was your official office. You met with them for 54 minutes.
No, they didn't.
They asked you for help. You pledged it to them, and they talked repeatedly about money. In fact, it's all they talked about.
That's a lie.
Money. They said, we will put our dollars in the right place. We will support candidates that will fight to protect our interests. You replied, that's right. They said, if you are securing your donor base and securing your power base, you can act the way you want. You replied, money is freedom. They said the amount of money circulating, I'm reading the transcript, the amount of money circulating in our community today is powerful, and we haven't realizing it in a meaningful way. And you said, give me the specifics. And 9 days later, you took $10,000 from people who were then indicted. It's in your reports. Why'd you do it?
Sir,
was it worth it?
You know what? This is a theatrical performance.
This is the truth. This is what accountability looks like, of which you've had none. You helped fraudsters defraud your state and this government of $9 billion, and you got a fat campaign contribution out of it. You ought to be indicted.
True. Well,
that's the truth.
I think we've made the point. Let's keep the tenor just
for the record.
I'll ask how I want to.
He's lying, and that's the truth.
Oh no, this is all on the record,
sir.
Did you bother to investigate where the money that you facilitated their fraud for, where it went? Do you know where it went, what it was used for, the fraudulent money? I do, because we just heard testimony about it yesterday.
Because we were key players in the
hundreds of millions of dollars to terrorist groups, to transnational criminal organizations, to the drug trade, to drug trafficking, to child trafficking. And you took $10,000
That's a lie.
And helped them do it. You know, the other thing is, whistleblowers came to you as early as 2019. Let's look. As early as 2019, whistleblower. Don't talk over me. As early as 2019, it's my hearing, pal. As early as 2019,
don't call me
whistleblowers came to. Well, I should call you prisoner because you ought to be in jail.
Well, you see what you can do
in 2019, whistleblowers came to you in your office. and referred to you fraud allegations from Feeding Our Futures, and you blew them off. Listen, your own state newspaper
That's a lie.
investigated it. The Minnesota Star Tribune, the Partners in Nutrition, brought its concerns to the Attorney General's office in 2018 and in 2019, and you did nothing. You did nothing for years. The only action you took is, once all these fraudsters came to your office and asked you to get involved and offered you money, then you got involved. Then you took the money, and then you got involved.
They did not come to my office. You're completely wrong about that.
You met with them
I did
for
not take anybody's
54
money.
minutes, and you took $10,000, and they also gave your family money. They gave your family thousands of dollars in campaign contributions in addition to what they gave
a false
you.
statement.
Let's put the
This is completely untrue.
The New York Post.
So, Claire, you're right. $10,000 is a pretty small amount in the scheme of things. $10,000 is what was shown through campaign contributions. There is no telling how much money Keith Ellison may have taken on the sly. $10,000 as a campaign contribution to an attorney general, not that big of a deal, right? A lot of people would just slide that under the radar and nobody would even see, nobody would notice. But think about how much cash was being booked around during the Feeding Our Future trial when one of those people tried to buy off a juror. That woman took a duffel bag of $200,000. And she only showed up with like 120 or something like that. She just skimmed 80 grand off the top.
Yeah, we know the New York Post.
Minnesota Keith Ellison, AG, accepted campaign donations from individuals linked to the $250 million COVID fraud scheme after they were in your office. The donations came on December 20th.
Sir,
you met with them on December the 11th, and on January 20th, the FBI knocked over their headquarters.
No.
That's the sequence of events here.
No, it's not.
You've been right at the center of this fraud thing from the beginning, and you've enabled it. And, sir, you should resign.
And, sir, you should resign. I was thinking the same thing about you.
Should resign.
Yeah, you should definitely resign, Keith. Things are not looking too good. All right. That is going to be for a little bit later in the show. Yeah. Oh, no. Actually, this is highly consequential. You know that Scott Bessent, Treasury, IRS, they are paying close attention to what's going on in Minnesota. He's just directed all banks in Minnesota, actually all banks everywhere in Minnesota, to flag and report international transactions that exceed $3,000, anything that's originating from Hennepin and Ramsey counties in Minnesota. So this is going to be the Somali populations right there. So that is triggering all of these banks to get together and determine exactly what they need to report right now, because they know that if they don't turn this information over, then they're all going to be in big trouble. Got a couple of comments over here. First of all, Jep863 says, Zach, at what point do we just become Americans again? No quarter to illegals or these repeat offenders. License to kill anyone who does not self-deport. No more gloves. It needs to be swift and firm. I cannot answer that question with any sort of timeline, but I can only suggest to you that these illegals are leaving at a rate that is, miles ahead of any time at any administration in the past. The administration is going through and sweeping people up. I think that every decision that is being made within the administration, shutting down bank accounts, flagging these transactions, going into certain communities, tightening the noose, it's making it more and more uncomfortable for these people. In Minnesota specifically, you got a lot of these individuals that are just like not leaving their houses. So I would hope that we don't have to get to the point where, mass violence is taking place on the streets. But there are, I believe, 1.6 million illegal aliens in the country on record that have final orders of removal. And those are the ones that that are left, pardon me. Those are the ones that they've been focusing on initially, but there's a lot more to get, and we need to make it as difficult as people for these people to continue living here. They can't work. They shouldn't be able to hold a bank account. They shouldn't be able to just walk down the streets. They need to just get the hell out of this country. Now, moving to the next one. Also a pretty bang-up interaction between Ron Johnson and Keith Ellison. And Keith Ellison didn't have a very good day. Pretty much everybody that he spoke with here on this committee really gave it to him, raked his ass across the coals. So you can see here, Ron Johnson basically started yelling at Keith Ellison over the deaths of Renee Nicole Good and Alex Pretty, because Keith Ellison, as the chief law enforcement officer in the state of Minnesota, could have really helped to bring down the temperature, and maybe those people wouldn't have died. Also, if he wasn't involved in the signal gates, then perhaps they wouldn't have died.
Exact opposite. And 2 people are dead because you encouraged them to put themselves into harm's way. And now you're exploiting those 2 martyrs. That was a tragedy. It never should have happened. Now, we can investigate, but I can't imagine being a law enforcement official where I know my colleagues have been shot at, their vehicles rammed, that there are trained activists deployed. And by the way, we know at least one of those activists had a semi-automatic pistol with extra clips. So now you're an ICE officer, you're doing enforcement action, you've got a team behind you trying to protect you, you've got all these trained activists behind you. Is it any wonder they're at hair trigger alert? A tragedy was going to happen, and you encouraged it. And you ought to feel damn guilty about it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
He's not going to feel guilty. He's a communist. These deaths, these martyrs, are simply a means to an end. They want to hasten the breakdown of society. They want to bring the revolution. And for somebody like Keith Ellison, more deaths on the street is a good thing. Now, well, this is actually what we just watched, but oh, no. This is Keith Ellison admitting to being part of the Signalgate chats. Take a listen.
Encourage trained activists to put themselves into harm's way because you had to know, because you were watching this, that there were scuffles at least, that these people were obstructing justice. I would think you'd actually, as the chief law enforcement officer of Minnesota, be concerned about people obstructing justice. So, you know, putting their cars in streets, blocking roads. I would think as chief law enforcement, you would be concerned about that, but were you ever concerned about encouraging, I guess, people to support you to go out and put themselves into harm's way?
No, we never.
Impeding and obstructing illegal law enforcement action. Did that ever concern you?
Sir, that never happened. We all times said, if you want to protest, protest peacefully, protest safely. But you'll never find me being against the First Amendment
right now. But
I'll always be for the First Amendment.
But you were seeing the scuffles, right? You were seeing and by the way, Minneapolis police officials could not help protect ICE officials, right? I mean, Representative Niska, isn't that, when you're talking about the nullification of federal law, isn't that one of the, Hennepin County, that they simply could not help and protect ICE in their legal law enforcement actions?
The Minneapolis Police Department issued guidance in July saying that they would not even help with crowd control.
I think that Keith Ellison's criminal liability was significantly raised after today's testimony. Also need to say thank you once again to Jep863. All these bad people, simple process. Black bag 'em, tag 'em, frag 'em, simple process. I agree with you. It could be done very quickly. Emerald Dragon 1333. Hey, Zach, Rhode Island Supreme Court Justice Goldberg is stepping down. Just another resignation to check off the list. Love you, brother. Thank you for that very much. Rhode Island is one of those places where there is plenty of corruption. All right, now, here is an interaction between Senator Bernie Moreno, who, by the way, is a naturalized American citizen. He emigrated here as a young man, gave up his citizenship in his home country so that he could become an American. He has embraced that. Bernie is totally based. He asked Keith Ellison whether or not someone should be deported if they come here illegally. And then he has a gotcha follow-up, which Keith Ellison is unable to answer based upon his previous answer.
Illegally.
What? Come on.
Or you overstay a visa.
To the beginning. Full screen, play.
To the country illegally, or you overstay a visa, should you be deported?
My simple answer is, sir, it depends.
Okay, so if somebody breaks into your home, should they be arrested for breaking and entering, or does it depend?
It's an entirely different scenario.
How's that?
Because immigration is essentially a civil, and breaking into my home is a criminal matter.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So if there's laws that should be enforced, so we shouldn't enforce civil violations?
We absolutely should enforce them.
But you just said that it's a civil matter, so it's different. So if somebody
you enforce
creates
civil matters.
So if somebody commits a civil infraction, it shouldn't be enforced?
It should be.
Okay, so they should be deported.
No, they should have due process that is associated with their petition. So,
again,
for example,
so the act of entering the country illegally.
Thank you very much to the Nun Report for the raid. Appreciate that, homie. Thank you very much. Anybody who's joining, thank you for being here. Please feel free to hit that like button. Also, feel free to subscribe.
You think we should say, well, did you really do it or not do it? It's pretty obvious that they did, right?
well, I mean, it would depend on the facts of the situation, and then they might say.
I just gave you the facts.
Right.
They entered the country without permission.
But Senator, what if they had a good faith basis to say they would be persecuted in their home country and subjected to real oppression there? Under international law, there are provisions for them to make a case.
That's a phenomenal point. Mexico and Canada, do you consider those to be safe countries or no?
Generally, I do, but there are certain
generally you do?
Wow, well,
Generally. So then why don't they just go to Canada or Mexico? Oftentimes they enter through Canada and Mexico and then they come here. Now, he mentioned something that is an argument I often hear from the left. Well, if they have this good faith belief that they're going to be persecuted, you know what? That's what refugee status is for. There is a different pathway for that. And what we're talking about are people who are not refugees, people who have not made an argument that they have a good faith belief they're going to be persecuted or murdered or put under the thumb of a brutal dictatorship, because there's plenty of people like that who come to the United States of America. And guess what? They enter the country legally. They seek legal status. They're not sneaking in through a non-approved port of entry, taking a boat to some far-flung beach in the middle of the night so that they can just step foot on our land. These people are under the assumption, or they argue, that simply once someone from another land steps foot here in the United States, they suddenly have some special status which affords them greater rights than natural-born American citizens. It is frankly ridiculous. And I could just see the wheels turning in Keith Ellison's head when he was asked if people should be arrested for breaking into your home. You know, the idea of this like civil versus criminal, I don't know why it's not a criminal matter, because it's a crime. As far as I know, when you come to the United States illegally, it's a crime. You should not be here. You should not have any reason to stay. Get the hell out. Now, also in this one, this is Keith Ellison being asked about the safety of Mexico or Canada, and it continues from the last clip that we watched. Come on.
Element.
Senator, what if they had a good faith basis to say they were persecuted in their home country and subjected to real oppression there? Under international law, there are provisions for them to make a case.
That's a phenomenal point. Mexico and Canada, do you consider those to be safe countries or no?
Generally, I do, but there are certain
generally you do?
Well, I mean, I would just say this.
You border Canada. Don't insult your neighbors to the north.
No, I love my neighbors to the north.
Well, so is it a generally safe country?
Generally, yes.
So then somebody seeking asylum could certainly be safe in Canada and Mexico, no?
Now, so like if somebody, we do know that in Mexico, which is another country I truly admire and think is a wonderful country, but there have been cases of persecution, people who have legitimate fear.
People aren't safe in Mexico? Refugees cannot be safe in Mexico?
Some might not be. And I think, and what I'm saying,
maybe
Senator,
we shouldn't have a free trade agreement with them then.
I didn't say that, but what I would say, Senator, is that we should hear their petition. Gotcha. We should at least hear it out. We should say, is there a well-founded and legitimate fear of persecution in your home country?
That can't happen in Mexico?
Well, I think that she should just follow the international protocols that existed. And
it is, which is that you seek asylum in your nearest country that you are seeking asylum in.
Yes, exactly. That's why we had Remain in Mexico. Tricia says they have a good faith belief, all right, that everything is free here because that's what Biden told them. Yes, and that's
Senator, what if they had a good faith?
That's what Keith Ellison and the Democratic Socialists of America continue to tell them there in Minnesota. Now, this is big news. Code Pink, which is a group we've spoken about before, the founder of Code Pink, is married to Neville Roy Singham, who is one of the biggest funders of the organized protest movement here in the United States of America. He lives in China, and the State Department has just officially branded Code Pink as linked to the Chinese Communist Party, which could provide some very interesting circumstances for them in terms of fundraising and operation here in the United States very shortly. So this State Department report has just come out. It was given to Congress stating that, yes, Code Pink is linked to the Chinese Communist Party. It's interesting because Data Republican had put together a thread not that long ago linking Code Pink to the Chinese Communist Party through the marriage of both of their founders. And Code Pink sent a cease and desist letter to Data Republican demanding that she withdraw her previous statement about their connections and, by its status there, the connection to China. Well, now Code Pink is not going to have any sort of legal argument whatsoever because as far as the State Department of the United States is concerned, they are, in fact, linked to the Chinese Communist Party. Now, they first kind of popped up during the presidency of George W. Bush. They began as some sort of anti-war group. And once Obama became president, continued most of Bush's foreign policy and certainly the wars that started under George W. Bush. They mysteriously stopped having a problem with what the United States government was doing, and some of their members were even guests at the inauguration of Barack Hussein Obama. But now, of course, that President Trump is back in office, they're doing all of their old tactics. They are funding the same paid protests that we've seen in the past, showing up at places where they're not invited. This is the same group, if I'm not mistaken, that showed up at that restaurant that President Trump went to, and these people stood up. They knew that President Trump was going to be at this restaurant. It wasn't on his public schedule. Somebody in the White House or in the administration had leaked it to them. So the State Department transmitted this report to Congress on Tuesday, linking a variety of lefty nonprofits, which include Code Pink and the People's Forum, to essentially call them Chinese influence operations. Partisan hacks spent years peddling the phony Russia collusion hoax while turning a blind eye to the sprawling web of far-left activist organizations who push the agendas of the CCP. This is a direct quote from the Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy. Her name is Sarah Rogers, and she provided this quote to the New York Post. Organizations like Code Pink and the People's Forum denigrate the United States, whitewash the violence of Marxist regimes, and run cover for China while enjoying an influx of cash from a donor network with connections to the Chinese Communist Party. The State Department will pursue complete transparency for the donor and NGO networks that lobby for our adversaries and seek to weaken the resolve of the United States. The report was entitled Countering Foreign Information Manipulation and Interference. I just want to also point out how refreshing that this is coming out now, when under the Biden administration, it was, countering far-right hate from QAnons. That was the kind of reports that we were getting. But they allege that China spreads propaganda through influence campaigns run by nonprofit organizations like Code Pink, the People's Forum, and other groups that are linked with the notorious Neville Roy Singham network. What I would like to see is a freeze of Neville Roy Singham's assets, because he has been subpoenaed by a number of committees in Congress to come and testify, and thus far he has failed to answer or even acknowledge that they want him here. He is a citizen of the United States of America. There are other things that we can do. Tom Cotton commented on this. He said, I've long called for an investigation into Code Pink's ties to the Chinese communists. You know what else is interesting? The founder of Code Pink and Marjorie Taylor Greene have gotten pretty cozy during the last couple of years. Marjorie has shown pictures of her posing with the founder of Code Pink. They've come and spent time in her office. I'm not saying anything overtly about that, but I find it interesting. Anna Paulina Luna also mentions Code Pink is a Chinese influence operation tied to the Singham network, funding the violent uprisings across America with CCP cash. Time to wake up to what's really going on. Josh Hawley also commenting, update, the State Department just confirmed what we knew all along. Code Pink is a shill for the CCP. Well, we'll see where this goes, but hopefully it means that we're going to have a seizure of assets, many people going to prison, and, of course, continuing the operation to make America great again. Now, let's take a look here. Todd Lyons also testified today, and he said that he and his family are under particular danger. There have been a number of people who have doxed Todd and his family. I've shown a couple of them, incidences where a woman had posted a map to his home online, also suggested that people should go after and kill him and his wife and his children. So Todd Lyons is a good dude, and he's doing good work.
So talk about the violence, the threats, the doxing against ICE officers. Because, again, that's where I've got a great deal of sympathy for people trying to enforce the law. They've been shot at. They've had their vehicles rammed, rocks thrown at their vehicles, doxed. On Central America, I found out that if you're become a new police chief, you get a DVD from the friendly drug cartels with your children and wife going into school and going to church. It's an explicit threat, hands off, or we're going to do something. Well, there's such a demand for unmasking ICE officers, but they've been doxed. So just talk about the violence, the threats, the doxing that your law enforcement officers are really under.
So, sir, it's day to day. I was the field office director for the state of New England. I covered all of New England. And if you looked at the beginning of the operations, January 20th up until April, ICE officers and agents weren't masked. But it's bad. And I'll just use myself as an example. The week that Charlie Kirk was assassinated, there was a tweet that went out. It said, kill Charlie Kirk, kill another, there was another individual in that, kill Todd Lyons. That's the stuff that I see. Yesterday, after the testimony on Tuesday, I went back to numerous death threats against my family. There was a videotape of my wife walking to work that people actively post. The cartels have actually posted the schematics to my home. ICE agents feel that every day. We actually did an operation with the Secret Service where we identified doxers who put up on telephone poles the home addresses and the schools where ICE officers and agents went to. But yet no one covered that operation. We covered that as a success. And I don't want my officers masked. I would work with this committee and any committee to work with holding individuals accountable that dox ICE agents, because ICE agents don't want to be masked. They're honorable men and women, but the threats against their family are real.
Okay, thank you.
So the work that these guys are doing, it just goes to show you that it is currently necessary for them to remain masked. People are always saying, why are they masked? Gestapo, blah, blah, blah. They're living and working every single day under the threat of being doxxed and having their wives and children killed, having attacks made on them personally. This is actually similar to something we already saw, so I'm not going to show that. So while that's happening, several leftist agitators have just been arrested, and I thought that it would be nice to check in with them. This guy right here is known as Fernie. He's a leftist out of Ice Out LA. He's being arrested. Yesterday afternoon, he posted a video where he's flashing a gun that he claimed he had stolen from so-called MAGA guys. He said they attacked him and he stole their gun. So he publicly brandishes a stolen gun on his social media, and they went and arrested him. Big brain on Fernie.
Those of you guys that don't know, I got fucking jumped last week by the MAGA boys. January 6th Proud Boys, and this is what I took from them. Look, straight little fucking punks. This is what I took from them. It's theirs. Look at all the upgrades on it, guys. It's my shit now. Our shit. Look at that. Fucking putos. Fuck MAGA. Those of you guys.
Retard. All right, here he is being arrested. I would encourage every single one of you morons to continue flaunting your crimes on your social media because they are definitely paying attention. Here's another big win right here.
I'm gonna go full I've seen videos where Tommy has been...
This guy is a leftist. I believe this is in Portland. His name is Travis William Jur. He's been arrested by the FBI because he directly threatened the lives of these Trump supporters and counter-protesters in Portland. And he also threatened the children of these people.
I'm gonna go full I've seen videos where Tommy
You're
has
just
been...
lumping us all in with some person on the internet.
Videos where
Well, that's going straight to Pam Bondi.
y'all are constantly taking on his family.
That's a threat. That's a threat. That's a threat against our lives. That's a threat against our lives. We're reporting you.
Are you afraid that if you walk away,
Pam Bondi can suck my
We're gonna report him. He's already done enough tonight.
I don't want them doing this to you, but you at this point are doing this to you.
I'm gonna go full.
All right, so 41-year-old Portland man is accused of making online threats to harm President Donald Trump and a woman and her 13-year-old son who attended a counter-protest outside the ICE facility in Portland. FBI agents arrested Travis William Jur at his home Wednesday morning as federal officers executed a search warrant. He made his first appearance in federal court in Portland yesterday afternoon on a single allegation of making threats via interstate communications. According to the FBI, Jur used various anonymous usernames on X and Facebook to send messages to the woman and her son who attended a Patriot Night at the ICE building on November 22nd. Here is some of those messages. He texted her and said, "You know I could effing kill you, right? Wouldn't be my first. Not that Call of Duty bullshit. You effed with the wrong veteran, you baby dick civvy F. You gonna effing apologize for what you've done, you miserable little shit? That SIG is just the tip of my armory." I guess he sent pictures of his guns. "And my shit is battle-tested, unlike your faggot ass. F around and find out, kid. Not everyone is as fake as F like you." This person replies and said, try and find me then. You won't find me at all. Go to a mental hospital. You need to before you end up hurting someone. You are really crazy and you need to calm down. You know how many effing pussy terrorists I killed over there? I lost effing count, Lance Johnston. I guess I missed a few white ones over here, you maggot F-boy. You think your civvy AKF faggot gun can hold up to spec ops shit, you little COD bitch, Call of Duty? I'll hunt your ass down and erase your entire family in the process. You've got two paths forward, you little Nazi F. Delete all that BS about me is the first option.
Such a fucking chode at such a young age.
Chode?
Yeah.
I don't know, guys. Who mogs here? Who mogs? Me? Who mogs? Who mogs?
So, yes, he is probably going to end up in prison because that's, that is to say if the jury doesn't nullify it. Now, this is actually, I played this before. I didn't realize this is the same guy. So this is a previous court case where he had attacked a Patriot counter-protester, and this guy waited outside the courtroom to see Mr. Jur heading on inside, and he assaults him again right in front of the courtroom.
Travis is here
for
you. My fucking wife, I'll kill you dead. You understand me?
Travis is...
So, yeah, this guy is definitely unhinged, and he deserves to be in prison. He is totally messed up. All right. Thank you very much to No Thanks Joe, who says, thanks, Lisa and Zach. Happy Thursday and have a great night. God bless. Be safe. Yes, sir. You do the same. Filter Dog 1, thank you for the can. Judy the Lady Pug, thank you for the cookie. Filter Dog says, resign Antifa Keith. Trump 1, thank you for the cookie. Hogleg, thank you for the cookie and the can. And Filter Dog says, MTG tipped Code Pink about the venue. Oh, my God. Okay. Well, that makes sense. All right, this is the story that I was waiting for confirmation on who actually was fired. But Customs and Border, speaking of leaks, Customs and Border Protection, a supervisor has been arrested and charged with harboring an illegal immigrant. CBP supervisor Andre Wilkinson allegedly had an illegal immigrant woman with whom he was in a relationship, and her child were living with him. So this guy was arrested and charged with harboring an illegal. CBP supervisor Andre Wilkinson is 52. He had this illegal immigrant woman living with him. They were in a romantic relationship. Her kid was living there as well. He's worked for CBP since 2001, and he became a supervisor in 2021. This woman illegally entered the United States on a non-immigrant visa in August of 23 and then overstayed. Law enforcement learned that an illegal immigrant was residing at Wilkinson's residence without legal authorization, which is what led to the criminal complaint. And authorities surveilled Wilkinson's residence from June through November of last year. They observed this illegal living there with him and her child. She also was observed using vehicles registered to Wilkinson. Investigators interviewed the woman in February of this year and said that she had been living with him since 2024. Wilkinson allegedly provided her with financial support in addition to housing, credit cards, help with financial obligations, and access to his vehicle. He also allegedly transported her through U.S. Border Patrol checkpoints, and of course, because he's CBP, nobody is going to stop him. Wilkinson traveled with her to San Antonio. If convicted, he faces up to 10 years in federal prison and a possible $250,000 fine. Big, big money and a lot of time in prison. All right. Now, good news for President Trump. A judge down here in Florida has just denied the BBC's motion to stay President Trump's $10 billion lawsuit against them. Can you imagine if President Trump actually receives a judgment like that and then he becomes owner of the BBC in the UK? So the trial has been set for February of next year, and this $10 billion lawsuit is now going to move forward. There's President Trump giving the finger. I love that. So the judge in the trial, U.S. District Judge Roy K. Altman in Miami, has set the trial date for February of next year. The case will only go to trial if it survives the UK news outlet's upcoming motion to toss the case out. And guess what? It has. So this $10 billion lawsuit is coming as a result of the way they manipulated that footage from January 6th back in 2021. So the judge also denied the BBC's request to pause discovery in the case until he rules on their motion to dismiss. That decision is due in March. The BBC will argue that its documentary was fair despite a misleading edit of one segment. How can it be fair if they misleadingly edited it and made it appear as if President Trump did and said something that he didn't actually do? They also plan to argue that President Trump's lawsuit fails to meet the high bar necessary for alleging defamation against a public figure. The standard requires showing of actual malice, meaning the allegedly defamatory statement was made intentionally or with a reckless disregard for the truth. Well, that's probably the reason they want to pause discovery, because if the Trump team is able through the discovery process to find communications of people saying, the president didn't say this, we can't publish it, and they say, who cares? Publish it anyway. We hate Trump and we don't want him to win. This is going to be a big deal. All right. They canceled Rehab Addict. Ah, man, that's a bummer. She'll probably go on to start a YouTube channel, and I think she'll probably be fine. All right. Now, Hillary Clinton, a sighting in the wild. She was seen departing a train in Munich as she makes her way to the Munich Security Conference. Apparently, there's a strike at Lufthansa, and she was unable to take her normal first-class accommodations. Why, you may ask, is Hillary Clinton at the Munich Security Conference? I thought she was so sick she was unable to testify before Congress. Of course, that testimony has now been set for February 26th. The conference there in Munich is scheduled for the 13th through the 15th. It is the 62nd annual conference, and it's taking place at the Hotel Bayrischer Hof and the Rosewood in Munich. It's being led by the Munich Security Conference Chairman, Ambassador Wolfgang Ischinger. Hundreds of decision makers and opinion leaders from different regions of the world will discuss security policy challenges. Nearly 50 heads of state and government from all over the world have already confirmed their attendance. Hillary Clinton is neither a head of state or the head of government or even a person with a job other than lining her own pockets. So I'm not exactly certain why she is there. Let's go ahead and show Hillary Clinton. You tell me, is this even Hillary Clinton? Oh, I got to wait for this commercial to end. Could be that Hillary is sending a body double to Munich so then she can fake a stroke, fake a death, something like that. All right, this is her. I mean, it looks like her. Anyways, hopefully the train doesn't derail on the way home. All right, I wanted to highlight this corrupt politician because I had never heard of her. And this woman apparently has made big work out of becoming a representative in Maine. Her name is Shelley Pingree. When she entered Congress, her net worth was $316,000. Now, keep in mind, Maine is another state with a big Somali population where a ton of fraud has taken place. And in just 4 years, her net worth has risen to $40.5 million. As soon as she became a congressman, she purchased a $15 million mansion on a private island off the coast of Maine. And she also bought a $20 million private jet so she can fly directly from Washington, D.C. to her private island. You have to ask the question, how is it possible that someone gets that much money?
Shelley Pingree's net worth was only $316,000 before joining Congress. Do you want to know what her net worth was just 4 years later? $40.5 million. She immediately purchased a $1 million mansion on a private island called North Haven just off the coast of Maine, and a $20 million private jet so that she can fly back and forth from her island to Washington, D.C. The worst part yet is that the fact that she made all of this money from trading the stock market. Yes, politicians are using the stock market to get rich, but they are all required to disclose their stock trades to the public. So I just copy their exact moves. I buy when they buy and I sell when they sell. Go to BorisFinance.com to learn.
The only problem is that they don't report it until well after that trade has been made. So you may be able to get in there. There's actually quite a few people out there who are following the reverse Jim Cramer stock indicators, or the Pelosi stock indicators, or Dan One Eye McCain Jr. I forgot his name. But, you know, if only I had the money to put into the stock market, that would be what I would be doing with it. Need to say thank you to Surter, who says most people who have been to combat that I've met don't like to brag about killing people. You are absolutely correct. That guy stateside the whole time, I bet. Yeah, he is not a legitimate individual. All right, now here is this clip from Kurt Cobain. I don't know how long before his death this was taken, but I have to believe that it was certainly on the radar of people who would know. So this is Kurt Cobain talking about children being raped in Seattle and a woman who had her life essentially ruined for coming forward. Take a listen to this. This is the first time I've ever seen this. Dan Crenshaw, yes.
She was kind of a foul-mouthed person, you know, and she hated the whole Hollywood scene, and she expressed her hatred for them publicly, and so. And she also, when she was like, I think she was 15, she entered this essay contest when she was living here in Seattle, titled "God is Dead," and a lot of people accused her of being a communist. And then she went to New York and was a part of this acting troupe, and so it supposedly had communist ties too, and so then there's this big conspiracy amongst a judge, a very well-known, prominent judge here in Seattle, and a bunch of other people who had ties with Hollywood, and they basically just set her up and ruined her life, you know. They, you know, had some pictures taken of her when she was arrested for drunk driving, and it was a big, huge scandal, and she eventually was sent to a mental institution and given a lobotomy and raped every day for years, and just totally abused, and ended up, like, working at a Four Seasons restaurant alone and dying by herself.
There's a Bainbridge Island. That's where she was institutionalized, right over there.
Mm-hmm.
There's this old broken down like infirmary there.
For years, every night there were lines of custodians, friends, and people, you know, part of the staff who would wait in line to rape her every day. You know, she went through a lot of shit. And it just disgusts me, you know, to know that there are some of the people that are part of that conspiracy are living here in Seattle in their comfortable, cushy little homes with their families. And, you know, it's 40 years after the fact, and it's just
He's a just God,
makes me
not a
want to
fair
kill
one.
him. Yeah.
That's what the Christians say. God, why was there Auschwitz? Well,
hold on. I think that this song may have been the reason that he wrote the song "Rape Me." Let me see. Okay, where is it? Where is it? Well, I'm not certain, but I can't find anything to indicate who this is that he's talking about. I'm wondering, did anybody ask Grok? Francis, starring Jessica. Oh, here we go. Somebody asked Grok. Frances Farmer, a Seattle actress from the 30s and 40s. Yep. Some details like the Vashon Island rapes are from Cobain's telling and may not align with historical accounts, it says. All right, so given everything that I have done to investigate the death of Kurt Cobain, I think there's any number of people who may have wanted him dead. Certainly, people very close to him, in my opinion, were involved in his death. That would obviously include, like, Courtney Cobain. I'm, trying to be very gentle with the way that I say it. That's just my opinion. But yeah, people that he was surrounded by, people that did not want him to stop using. Also, the record label, certainly there was a lot of money wrapped up in Kurt Cobain and Nirvana's catalog. And when he died, all of that transferred over to Courtney. You'll see a lot of these artists are killed young because they've already made so much money. And when people like Kurt Cobain die, their musical catalog becomes legendary. Do another special on him? Well, we'll see. I just talked about it the other day, and there isn't. I will certainly talk about it if there is something that comes out from the new autopsy that was just released. Because there are definitely people who are alive today who need to go down as a result of this. G. Fontes says, there's insider sites that track C-suite executives' trades that must be reported within 48 hours and are rarely late, whereas Congress has 60 days and rarely on time, easily found via online search. You are correct. Jep says, Zach, I'm reminded of a humbling fact. People that flee the USA to France, like Clooney, Roseanne to Ireland, guess what? They still have extradition. For those that retire from positions, we can still prosecute. You are correct, my friend. Absolutely. Okay, and G. Fontes, I guess that you sent that twice, so thank you very much for that. Yes, there are definitely European nations that still have extradition. Now, we've got to talk about what happened yesterday with Pam Bondi's testimony, because I just did not get a chance to go through any of it. Now, I've said this on my show. Well, I said it earlier with a couple of different shows. A lot of people are not impressed with Pam Bondi. People are very harsh on her. They say they don't like the way that she carries herself. They don't like the way that she's always doing interviews. They didn't like her testimony yesterday. It was very contentious. She was essentially just like, in constant arguments with the Democrats on the committee. And they wanted her to answer questions essentially that would incriminate the administration and President Trump, et cetera. And she wasn't going to do that. Now, I will say this, and there is an old axiom from our friend Sun Tzu: appear weak when you are strong. And I think that that is highly relevant when it comes to the affectation that Pam Bondi has when she's out in the public. It's only under President Trump's administration and Pam Bondi's Department of Justice that any of these Epstein files have come out. It's only because of President Trump's manipulation of the left and the media that anybody cares about the Epstein files other than us, that anybody cares about the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein other than us. And I remember the moment that it happened when Elon and Trump broke, and Elon went to Twitter and said Trump is in the Epstein files. Immediately, Harry Sisson and a bunch of other mouthpieces in social media influence world on the left, they immediately started asking for the Epstein files, demanding it. The press suddenly started demanding the Epstein files. Whereas before, for years, we had demanded that justice be done, and no one cared. In fact, the press did everything they could to cover up the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was friends with Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and all of these people in business and finance. They never wanted to talk about it, even when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested and he was disappeared from the MCC. The conversation about him stopped. The only time they ever mentioned it was that President Trump was connected to Jeffrey Epstein, and they even let that go because they knew how dangerous it was. But once Elon Musk made them think that President Trump was in these files in a nefarious way, they suddenly demanded it. They needed it because they thought, once again, we've got him. We finally got Trump. We're going to expose him, and everybody's going to know he's a pedophile, even though they knew that it could potentially be dangerous for many of the sacred cows that they have on their side. Well, guess what? That didn't work out very well. Didn't work out very well for them, and it's not going well, not only for people here in the United States, but as a result of these files being put out, there are bureaucrats, we've talked about them, that have lost their positions. They are being arrested. They are being investigated. It's happening all over the world. Now, one such person here in the United States that actually has been mentioned in the Epstein files is a man by the name of Keith Frankel. I guess he's in there like 460 times. I haven't had the opportunity to dive in and see exactly what he and Epstein are, what he's talking about or what other people are talking about with regard to him. But in this email right here, he's asking Epstein something about body boxes. That's disturbing. And here is his father, Ed Frankel, who established the charity in Odessa, Ukraine, which deals with children displaced from war. And we all know that Ukraine has been a huge hotspot for human trafficking, for the theft of children. And here he is also pictured with Pam Bondi. All right. Now, I don't know what Pam Bondi's relationship is to Keith Frankel, but they're in a picture together. Perhaps that would be something to address. But let's go ahead and very quickly take a look at this email. This is from Keith Frankel to Jeffrey Epstein in 2010, so after he was a sex offender. And the attachment, the subject is forward the body boxes, and the attachment is the_body_box.pdf. So let me very quickly do a search over here on the Epstein files on the DOJ's website. the_body_boxes.pdf. Okay, so this PDF doesn't appear to be in here. And that definitely makes me wonder why that would be. So here is an article about the charity that they run. They're called Tivka. Housed, educated thousands of abandoned, abused, and orphaned Jewish children in Odessa since 1994. I would appreciate if somebody could answer who exactly he is. Now, here is somebody who has actually found something in relation to these body boxes. And it's apparently a 28-day body sculpting system, which seems that it is in reference to weight loss, not to boxes to put children in or something like that. Hi, Kara. We think the second look is right on for VS. Can you please drop the use of ISO in the text and make a 3D image box that we can send out Monday? Hi, Richard and Mary. Here's 2 mock-ups, simple and more complex for the body box. The intention is that all the gray would be metallic, silver spot on, one with girl photograph. She would be part of the CMYK build, no metallic spot color. Then on both options, we'd want to explore options for spot varnish for a matte high gloss contrast. On the simple one, I do the dark red, etc. This is talking about the design of a website or marketing materials for this body box stuff. List of product suggestions, marketing suggestions, leave graphics out, come see me Sunday. This is Jeffrey Epstein sending to Keith Frankel. So even if Keith Frankel has not done anything nefarious other than having the supremely poor judgment to meet with Jeffrey Epstein and have a relationship with him, I would appreciate it if he would maybe come forward and say something. Now, with Pam Bondi being a fixture in Florida politics for so long, she's got pictures with all kinds of people, right? So it doesn't mean necessarily that Pam Bondi is covering up for Keith Frankel having done something disgusting. But again, that's why we ask the questions, and that's why we suggest that maybe people who are in these emails come forward and clarify exactly what's going on. But I go back to the way that I started this segment here. It's only under Pam Bondi's Department of Justice in Donald Trump's second administration that any of this information is out there. And I think that she deserves credit for that in one respect or another. But appear weak when you are strong. That allows your enemies to have a sense of complacency, superiority, and it allows for things to take place in the background. So you can do the work that needs to be done to bring these people to justice. I believe that will happen because I think that especially now with all of this attention, everything that's being exposed, this is not just some random anons on the internet who are aware of Jeffrey Epstein, his crimes, and the people that he committed those crimes with. This is now global. This is everywhere. This is a genie you are not putting back in the box, and every day it gets worse. Now, this is President Trump responding to Howard Lutnick's revelation from the emails recently that we talked about.
No, I wasn't aware of it. No, I didn't. I actually haven't spoken to him about it. I wasn't. But from what I hear, he was there with his wife and children. And I guess in some cases, some people were. I wasn't. I was never there. Somebody will someday say that. I was never there. Yeah, please.
All right. Now, as Caroline Levitt said the other day, Howard Lutnick has the full faith of the president. Howard Lutnick is not going anywhere. Is it possible that Howard Lutnick and his wife and kids went to Epstein's Island and it was just a lunch? It is. I still think it's bad judgment. And I would hope that we know that he went there. We know that he went there. I would hope that there was something else taking place. Perhaps Howard Lutnick was positioned at some point in the past, knowing that this moment would come. And his presence on the island had something to do with that. It's a stretch. I realize that. However, I side with President Trump and his judgment, and Howard Lutnick is staying in the administration. G. Fontes, Daily Double, today's answer is for $2 from the category Clues that begin with the letter Q. Thank you for that, sir. Appreciate that. Now, continuing. It turns out that when French authorities raided Jeffrey Epstein's home after his arrest in 2019, they searched his apartment and they seized his entire Gmail address along with 4,500 outgoing messages, photos, documents, everything. It turns out that French prosecutors did absolutely nothing with it. In fact, they actually sought to cover it up. Of course, it wasn't long after Jeffrey Epstein's arrest that Jean-Luc Brunel also had charges brought against him, but that was the United States that did that. We were in the process of extraditing him to the United States when he also was suicided in his jail cell. But we can see here, this is from yesterday. The secrets of Jeffrey Epstein's mailbox were in the hands of the French justice system for 6 years. Since the massive publication of the Epstein files by the American justice system, the fire of revelations concerning leading public figures seems to be spreading in all Western capitals. And I read this to you because, again, it would have continued to be an unknown set of facts were it not for this Department of Justice having released these files and producing an environment where this type of pressure would be put on all governments around the world, where anybody who had anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein has some explaining to do. The newsrooms scrutinize the messages, take down the names, reconstruct circles of influence. The materials seem abundant. They're not stopping anytime soon. However, one fundamental element has largely escaped the media narrative: the court documents that explain where these emails came from. The letter from the public prosecutor to the public prosecutor at the Paris Court of Appeals requesting mutual legal assistance from American authorities, dated July 8th, clearly indicates that this account was seized during the search of the multimillionaire's home in September of 2019. In fact, the personal correspondence attributed to Jeffrey Epstein, the core of the corpus, is actually rather narrow. A single email account, jeevacation@gmail.com, with about 4,500 outgoing emails. They are the ones we read, quote, interpret. The other documents exist, notes, procedural documents, annexes, but they do not come from the same source or the same evidentiary status. Why is this box so central? Well, the answer is contained in a document that has so far been ignored by most of the media. Marianne reveals the existence and content of a request for mutual legal assistance from the Paris prosecutor's office, drafted after the search of Epstein's Parisian apartment in September of 2019. The letter states Jeffrey Epstein's Gmail account was analyzed, 4,500 emails were apprehended, referring in particular to Jean-Luc Brunel, in addition to emails related to Jeffrey Epstein's accusations, women, and appointments. This equipment has therefore been in the hands of the French justice system for more than 6 years. The silence is not insignificant, because once this document has been taken into account, one thing becomes obvious. It is hardly credible that Epstein, a seasoned alleged financier familiar with opaque circuits, was satisfied with a single Gmail mailbox for all of his sensitive exchanges. What we read today is therefore not Epstein's correspondence, but just a part of his correspondence that became accessible thanks to a search and French mutual legal assistance. As you may remember, I believe it was about a week ago, we had a list of all of Jeffrey Epstein's emails. There was dozens of them that he was using. And I don't know that we've seen everything from all of them, or that every single one of them was successfully accessed. But the problem is not that these emails show, but what they mask their uniqueness. In the absence of other equivalent sources, a single box becomes a distorting prism. It structures the story, sets the angles, feeds the interpretations, while leaving other channels, intermediaries, unwritten communications all out of the frame. This is highly important because we've seen in certain Gmail or in certain email conversations, Jeffrey Epstein was very clear that he did not want to say certain things in an electronic format because he knew there would be a record of it. Undoubtedly, there were other methods of communication which fully detail the true depravity of what was happening in these circles that he was frequenting, exposing the true nature of exactly what he was doing. Now, in regards to one of those global bureaucratic figures in Norway, and we mentioned earlier yesterday that the former Prime Minister Thorbjørn Jagland was under investigation. He's now being arrested for the corrupt relationship he had with Jeffrey Epstein. He is charged with gross corruption over his ties with the U.S. sex trafficker. The Council of Europe has removed Jagland's diplomatic immunity so that he could be indicted. The Transparency Act emails that showed he took solo and family trips to Epstein's homes in Paris, New York, and Palm Beach all after Jeffrey Epstein became a convicted sex trafficker in 2008. So it would appear that the justice we seek is still continuing to roll out, however slowly, but it's a good thing. And I will celebrate every single deep state bureaucrat, no matter what country they call home. Tricia says, this is the Kurt Cobain song written about Francis Farmer. Well, thank you for that. I can't play that because we're live on YouTube, but let me just pull it up and I will see what the name of the song is. Oh, Francis Farmer will have her revenge on Seattle. Duh. That's definitely what it is. All right. So here we have another report coming from the FBI. This is a document detailing the claims of a witness who called into the National Threat Operations Center in July 2020, of course, after Jeffrey Epstein was taken off the board. She claimed that there was the body of a child buried beneath a structure on one of Jeffrey Epstein's properties. This would appear to be the temple on Little St. James. She described a building like a blue and white mausoleum. And of course, that directly matches up with that little temple with the golden dome and the statues on it. Now, many people have suggested that inside that temple be a perfect place for satanic rituals or the sacrifice of children. Of course, we do know that at one time, at least, there was a subterranean entrance which allowed to the connection of the tunnels on the island. This witness did not stop there, though. She also claimed to have been taken to another underground temple system in the Ouachita Mountains of Arkansas. She described an entrance that was nearly 1,000 feet wide. It was large enough to drive through with massive pillars like an underground parking garage. I've shown a video here before, which you guys might remember, of a underground storage facility that big rigs would be able to drive into. I believe that is in the Ozarks. Let me see if I can find it, because I imagine it's exactly the type of thing that she saw. Okay. It's okay, so this doesn't show the semi driving in, but this gives you an idea of what this would look like. There are facilities like this in mountain ranges all over the world. But this guy says trucker accidentally films a massive underground facility, and you know, I don't know that he accidentally did it. I mean, he appears to have posted this on his personal TikTok. This is in the Springfield Underground, and yeah, this is in the Ozarks in Missouri. So take a look.
Hey TikTok, just a quick update. It's Saturday, I believe, and here's the truck I've been driving for the last few days for Wilson Logistics. This trailer just was assigned to us from Kraft over at the Kraft Foods plant, and we're delivering it here to what's called the Springfield Underground. And that is, as you can see behind me, this giant cave that's big enough to house hundreds of these trucks and trailers. There's a train track running through here. Just to give you an idea, back here, there's a regular sized truck. See how tall that is up there? It's just incredible. Anyway, having a great time, learning lots. Talk to you soon. Hey TikTok, just a...
Okay, so now what I wanted to see is if there was a similar facility in the Ouachita Mountains, but I haven't found anything equivalent to this Springfield Underground complex. But ultimately, my point is that these are rather common. They exist all over. Now, whether they're public knowledge or not, that's another thing entirely. But let's take a look at her claims. Now, this was credible enough that the FBI actually investigated it. It's very different from, say, those anonymous tips that came in, which claimed that President Trump and Ghislaine and Jeffrey, like, you know, were raping kids on Trump's golf course or something like that. So you can see here on 7/8/2020, the victim called the National Threat Center to report that they were a witness to the activities of Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and a redacted individual in 1981 and 1982. Victims stated in early 82, Epstein and Maxwell were flying a jet out of Las Vegas, taking girls and going to New Mexico, and that it was an F-fest on the plane. The victim stated she had been at the airport waiting for the other girls to go, but the victim never went on the plane because of her poor attitude. Victim stated there was sex all the way down to New Mexico, and they were supposed to go to some island in New Mexico. The information the victim received about this came from an unknown girl, which went to New Mexico a couple of times. In 1982, victim stated there was a blue and white building. A child's body was buried under the building, and it's a mausoleum or a small building in New Mexico. Now, I have never seen a building like this in New Mexico, and as far as I'm aware, in 1982, Jeffrey Epstein did not at least own the Zorro Ranch. But that doesn't mean that he may not have already had a pre-existing network in New Mexico, which led to him purchasing that Zorro Ranch property. She continues by saying, in New Mexico, the unknown girl was terrified to report this to the police, and the victim does not have her name. The person that introduced victim to Epstein and Maxwell was another redacted individual. His fake name is redacted, and stated redacted was a former DEA agent. Redacted stated other redacted would do things to redacted and make her submissive to him. Redactive stated redacted showed her a tunnel, and it was really big and is in the Wichita Mountains in Arkansas. The entrance to the tunnel runs about 1,000 feet wide. You can drive right up to it. It's like a parking garage, but it's underground. Pillars are wider than a normal parking garage. Redacted drove redacted about 50 feet in, took a picture of the tunnel. The tunnel is all cement and did not reflect any light. The tunnel would get darker the further in you would go. Redacted stated she was with Redacted for 2 years from February 81 to October of 82. The address where Redacted and Redacted lived was at, and then she gives an address. Redacted stated she was 21 years old during this time. Redacted stated she has a picture of her and, I'm assuming, the former DEA agent from where he had beaten her up. Redacted stated Redacted said they were looking for ghosts and no one can find him. So you can see here on the map, this is a picture from the road. This is the section where the Wichita Mountains reside. It is crossing through Oklahoma and Arkansas. I've never been there. I would imagine that maybe somebody else here has, but I don't know if this investigation went any further. This is the only document that I've seen related to this so far, but and again, I don't know exactly what Jeffrey Epstein's property status was in 81 or 82. Not impossible to think, though, that perhaps the temple on Little St. James was perhaps based upon something that had already been built in the past. Continuing. Thanks again, Trisha, for that. I appreciate you. This also came out. This is another conversation between Jeffrey Epstein and Steve Bannon. It appears that Steve Bannon and Jeffrey Epstein were communicating about MI5 mole Stephen Halper in 2018. This was before it was public knowledge that Halper was working for British intelligence and the CIA when he was running those operations against the Trump team, which included Svetlana Lakova. Now, take a look at this. Epstein writes to Reed Weingarten in this email. He says, a U.S. citizen working for MI5 calls Trump campaign insiders and tries to get info for MI5 and the FBI. Working, including after Trump takes office. One, did Obama know? If a U.S. citizen working for Britain spies, can they spy on Americans? Who pays? Paid. Wild. Donald focused on this big time. So he's obviously talking about Stefan Halper here. And right here, Bannon and Jeffrey Epstein are discussing Stefan Halper. Why do you say Halper is the real deal? Steve Bannon says. And he says it will wait till F2F, but definitely. I don't know what that means right there. But you can see right here that Epstein emailed his lawyer. That was Reed Weingarten here. And in this email, as it goes further, he says he's an FBI informant, MI5 CIA OI, and that's because he says here, who is going to represent Stefan Halper? That will be fun. So I find it highly interesting that Jeffrey Epstein knew that Stefan Halper was an MI5 CIA spy as early as May of 2018. So clearly deeply embedded within the deep state at that time. Now, continuing. This is interesting. When Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested back in 2020, one of the reports that came out was that her phone was wrapped in tinfoil. Well, she had two phones, one of them that wasn't wrapped in tinfoil, one of them that was wrapped in tinfoil. And she is trying to obviously stay off the grid. I don't know why she would have one phone wrapped in tinfoil and one phone not wrapped in tinfoil, because both of those are going to have signals that are going to be connecting to the towers. Perhaps the phone that she doesn't wrap in tinfoil is not registered to her name. I'm not exactly certain. But we can see here in the FBI report from her arrest, cell phone discovered on the bedside table in the room that Maxwell ran into was brought with Maxwell during her transportation and arrest processing. Maxwell was asked if this was her cell phone and if she wanted to bring it with her, and she responded yes. During the initial securing of the premises, an agent discovered in plain view what appeared to be another cell phone wrapped in tinfoil found on top of the desk in a room upstairs. Maxwell was asked if she would like to also bring the cell phone wrapped in tinfoil, and she said no. During transport to the Merrimack County Department of Corrections, this is interesting here, Maxwell asked again to be read her charges. When the writer of this report informed Maxwell of the enticement of a minor charge, Maxwell asked if it was in regards to one victim or more than one victim. Maxwell further asked, what about, and she, I believe, asks about a name. Writer informed Maxwell details about other investigations would not be discussed with her. Maxwell turned over to Merrimack County Department of Corrections for safekeeping until her initial appearance later that day. And we can see here in this report, this is regarding the phone again. It is clear that Miss Maxwell was not. It is clear that Miss Maxwell was not at all the master spy the government makes her out to be, and was not wrapping her phone in order to evade detection by law enforcement. First, the cell phone in question, it was subscribed in the name of the Terramar Project, which was easily identifiable through a simple Google search as Miss Maxwell's charity, the charity that never donated any money to any causes, only appeared to give Ghislaine Maxwell a cover to use unincorporated and international portions of the ocean to travel freely and not have to appear on travel logs. You do have to keep records of where you're traveling as a submarine, but if you're only traveling in international waters, then you can get away with not actually doing that. They continue. This is actually from her lawyer. Second, Miss Maxwell used the phone to make calls as late as May 2020, just before her arrest. She would never have used that phone if she had been concerned the authorities were going to track her. Third, Miss Maxwell had another phone subscribed in the name of GMAX that she was using as her primary phone, which was not covered. That's the one she took with her. It could make no sense for her to wrap her phone in tinfoil to evade detection. But it's not explained why she decided to wrap that phone in tinfoil either. I also thought this was ironic. She had this book on her desk, Jesus Calling. I'm not familiar with the book, but Maxwell doesn't seem like a very devout Christian to me. All right. Next on the docket. This is interesting. So, one of the things that really got people's goats when Kash Patel and Dan Bongino did that interview, when they said that Jeffrey Epstein's homes were not set up to record clandestine video all over the place. And everybody was like, well, we know that they were. Why would you tell us that they weren't? Well, here is a 15-minute video taken from Jeffrey Epstein's living room, which shows Jeffrey and Ghislaine meeting with multiple women at his desk in his living room. This was actually, I believe, you see, the way this is phrased, I can't tell if it is video that was captured by the Palm Beach police, or if the Palm Beach police discovered this video because they had arrested Jeffrey Epstein. But Detective Joseph Riccardi confirmed in 2006 they installed 2 cameras and clocks in the garage in the library. So I would assume that this is hidden camera footage that Jeffrey Epstein and Maxwell set up. Maxwell also claimed that there were no hidden cameras, which, again, we can see that it's a lie.
Jeffrey Epstein's victims have long said they believe they were being filmed by the sex offender. And this footage from a spy cam style camera inside Epstein's Palm Beach house appears to show.
Yes, and it does show that. So you can go through and you can compare the location of the camera to known pictures of Jeffrey Epstein's homes. There is a ton of information in here about the spy cameras. I bring this up because it's just a weird thing to claim didn't exist, because we know that it doesn't exist. G. Fontes says tinfoil should block the cameras on smartphones. I mean, theoretically, it would block all signals from being able to reach the smartphone. Perhaps not effectively, but it would definitely lessen it. All right, this is just kind of a disturbing email, but in this email, Jeffrey Epstein is having an exchange with someone named Dan, and he's talking about getting one of his victims plastic surgery. He calls her Babyface, and Dan replies and says, "Hi, Jeffrey. She only needs to refine the tip and narrow the nostrils. The upper half of the nose can remain untouched. Surgery is approximately 1.5 hours. Twilight anesthesia, IV sedation, usually no pain or bruising. She could fly in 8 to 10 days. Best wishes, Dan." So Dan appears to be a plastic surgeon. It stands to reason that if Jeffrey Epstein was trafficking girls, that he would have a plastic surgeon on hand so that he could use them to change the appearance, perhaps to make them more aesthetically pleasing, or to even change their looks to perhaps make it easier to hide their true identity and thereby make it easier to traffic them. Rude Dog says, "I'll never watch Dan Bongino again because I feel lied to." I completely understand that. You know, I mean, I've heard a lot of people say that. And, the only thing that, my take on it is that, again, as I've said on many different things, I was not in the room, so I don't know what Dan and Cash knew that I didn't know. So I guess I'm more forgiving about it because of that, because I know that there is a lot that is happening behind the scenes, and there is so much more that is going to run out. Now, consider this. If Dan and Cash claimed that those things that we know existed did not exist based upon the volume of evidence that was publicly acknowledged at that time, was that an effort to convince guilty parties that they had less to worry about, which in turn would also make them more prone to slip up and perhaps comment? Like, think about this. If they said that publicly and there were co-conspirators of Jeffrey Epstein that were being surveilled, if those people replied or sent messages to people and said, "Whew, Dan Bongino just said that the videos don't exist. Thank God we have nothing to worry about." Well, then that allows them to use that as potential evidence against them. So, continuing, this is not Jeffrey Epstein related, but this is a new piece of technology that the United States government is in possession of. It's called a Raytheon Coyote Block 3NK. It's a reusable interceptor that apparently has an EMP weapon on it. And what we're going to see here is a swarm of drones where this interceptor flies by, flashes the EMP. It obviously doesn't disable the interceptor, but it takes these drones out. I thought it was really cool. I need to refresh. Okay, so you can see here, we've got a swarm of 4 drones, and they must be targeting it over here on the bottom left from another location. Interceptor flies right by, doesn't touch them, and they just fall out of the sky. And I want those drones appear to have exhaust coming from them. So I don't know what kind of drones they are, but I just thought that was really cool. Ray, thanks for being here, buddy. Appreciate you. All right, now, okay, that was the DHS thing. That's no more. Okay. This is the last clip we're going to watch, and I actually meant to have this further or earlier in the show. But Josh Hawley asks one of the witnesses today where the money that is fraudulently taken from the United States goes every single year. And I think this is a question that we already know the answer to, but there's other people out there who are perhaps slow to catch up.
Where is this money going? I mean, we know where some of it's going in Minnesota. It went overseas. It went to Somalia. It went to NGO fronts. We know where it's gone in some other states. California gave away billions of dollars to a pro-Hamas NGO. But $1 trillion nationally. Where's this money going to?
I appreciate that question because most people don't ask that question. It goes to terrorism. It goes to child trafficking. It goes to drugs. It goes to terrorism. And then it's used to purchase luxury items, cars, purses, homes. That's all funded by people like me that pay taxes.
So you're telling me that the electrician who goes to work every day and clocks in and works his butt off and tries to earn just enough to be able to, make his rent, maybe have a kid or two, put food on the table, his tax money is being used to buy other people luxury items, cars, yachts, whatever else, and is going to fund terrorism and child trafficking?
Yes, sir.
$1 trillion a year on this stuff?
$115 million an hour.
$115 million an hour. How do they get in their hands on it? What are we talking about here? Trends, national organizations, criminal networks? How do they get their hands on this money?
They take advantage of antiquated government systems and processes. They go into programs that they know elected and appointed officials won't touch, and they can steal at scale. And what happened really was during the pandemic between the PPP loans and the unemployment insurance, they learned a really valuable lesson. Government never runs out of money, and the probability of getting caught is virtually zero. I have it at 0.1%.
So come back to the recommendations that you mentioned in your opening statement. What do we need to do to put a stop to this hemorrhaging of people's hard-earned money going overseas to finance child trafficking and luxury yachts? I mean, what needs to happen here?
It's really simple. It's used every single day in the commercial sector. Front-end identity verification, you just don't get to say, I am who I say I am. Second, recertification of all the recipients. There is so much fraud right now in the benefit programs all across the country. We need to get a baseline. Third, this notion of a third-party independent audit. And finally, is involving federal law enforcement, like the Secret Service, to investigate it. The thing that people don't understand is that most of these beneficiaries, Senator, they're not real. They're fake. They're someone's stolen identity that is getting used in all 50 states.
$115 million an hour. That is an absolutely staggering amount of money. To imagine that is being siphoned out of us, out of our pockets, out of our country, every single day. Now, somebody had a wonderful observation in the chat, and I actually was going to go there, and I just forgot because we were so close to being out of time. Somebody said, I'm so glad we're not shooting $1 million missiles at drones anymore. That's right. That one reusable interceptor, it can be used indefinitely, and it just took out 4 of those drones. How much money did we save right there, not having to send individual pieces of artillery up into the sky to blow them out? How many of them would have missed otherwise? That thing pops the EMP off, and those drones just fall out of the sky. We are saving an untold amount of money, but as is obvious from that last clip, there is still a lot of work that needs to be done. And I am sick, absolutely sick, knowing that throughout my entire life, throughout our collective lives, they have figured out how to get us to pay for the things that we want to stop, how to get us to pay for the trafficking of children, for the victimization of women and children, for the victimization of men, boys, how to pay for their criminal enterprises, how to pay for their mansions and their Bentleys, when a lot of us are just trying to scrape by every single day. Well, that's over. Those days are coming to an end. A couple final thank yous over here on Rumble and Pilled. Makes sense to me, too. Says, good evening, Zach. Sick stuff. We should do like Alabama and pass a law for death penalty for child predators. We've got it down here in Florida. Also, True Deplorable says, Zach, you're a gem. Appreciate you. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. I have one final message from our friends over here on Rumble so we can pay the bills before we close out. Parents, grandparents, it is time for some real talk about America for just a second. We are about to hit a huge milestone. Coming up right now on America's 250th birthday. We're going to be celebrating it all year. That is 250 years of freedom, grit, and sacrifice, and the greatest experiment in self-governance the world has ever seen. This is the perfect moment to help your kids or grandkids understand why this country matters, and not just the fireworks and the hot dogs, but the story behind it all and how it actually happened. There's a free guide called The Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday, and it's honestly a great way to introduce kids to how America began, who the founding fathers were, what they risked, and why the ideas they fought for still matter today. This guide sends kids back to the moment when brave men signed the Declaration of Independence, knowing full well they were risking their lives for freedom. It breaks it all down in a way kids can actually understand and enjoy, all doing it without watering it down or turning it into boring schoolwork. If you care about raising kids who know where this country came from and why it's worth preserving, this is something that you're going to want to grab. And the best part, it's completely free with this special offer. All you do is pay the $2 for shipping and postage. So just head to freeusabirthday.com. That's freeusabirthday.com. And the Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday is there for your kids today. America's story matters. Make sure the next generation knows it. You can use that QR code on screen, the link in the chat, or on any platform, freeusabirthday.com. Now, final thank yous to our friends over here on Pilled. Sir Lurks a lot. Thank you for the can. Appreciate you, my friend. Filter Dog, thank you for the cookie. Sean Joe, thank you for 2 cookies. My brother from another mother, Enoch, is over there as well with the can. He says, Lanterns, a new song off my upcoming album, Echoes of Liberty. You guys, I have told you before, you should definitely be following Enoch. If you follow him on his YouTube channel or his X, then you can see these videos and songs that he's making. They're really great. And we'll go ahead and close out with Enoch's latest song. Let me just get it queued up. And then we will close out with that. Thank you, Enoch. Good to see you, brother. Filter Dog, again, MTG tipped off Code Pink about the venue. That is really sad. Sad to know. All right, so I see a lot of strong opinions about Bongino. This is America. We are all entitled to our opinions. And I guess all I'm saying is that I'm withholding judgment ultimately. Just to see how everything shakes out. The one thing that I really care about, I'm not real big on personalities, other people. The only personality that I truly follow with any regularity is President Trump, because that's where I think the juice is at. That's where I think the really important stuff is happening. But I just track the news, and I tried to discern what the truth is and where we're going. Thank you for everybody for hanging out with us today. The links to all of the sponsors are in the description of this video. My friends over at onenessdrops.com/redpill78. You can save 15% off their chlorine dioxide water purification kits. Also their DMSO. Use that every single day. My good friend Mike Lindell at mypillow.com. When you use code RP78, you can save up to 80% off of Mike's American-made products. We just changed the sheets yesterday, and there's always a wonderful feeling when you get into a fresh set of My Pillow. Giza Dream Sheets. Also, of course, my good friend Jordan at ConsciousStrength.net. Use code RP78 and you can save 10% off their Methylene Blue or their Shilajit gummies or their Green Energy, their electrolytes, the collagen. All of it is wonderful. And of course, it's American made. And finally, my friends over at rncstore.com, when you use code RP78, you will save 10% off of all of their B17 apricot seed products, Laetrile. Check it out. If you don't know why, you will definitely want to see why people take it. All of it is in the description below. Thank you to you in the chat, Mokanon. All the misspellings in the emails are interesting. Yes, we spoke about those the other day. I think that truly they were using those misspellings to get around any possible searches in the same way that they did within the federal government. And I think that President Trump using those same misspellings was his sort of hat tip to say, I know. And that's another reason why I love President Trump, because I think this operation has been ongoing for far longer than when he decided to run for president in 2015. We're going to go ahead and watch Enoch's video, and then we will close out. Actually, let me go to the full screen here, and I'll see you guys on the next one. I'm dropping the link to Enoch's video and his Twitter account in the chat right now, guys.
We waited in the tower of the old North Church, hands raw from climbing the beams. The smell of dust and damp rope heavy in the air, and Boston down below, quiet in the hold of the crown. Soldiers moving through the streets like wolves on patrol. The people pretending to sleep, nobody trusting tomorrow. We were not heroes, just coopers, sailors, stable workers, and sons of shop owners. Men without rank who worked long hours to scrape through each week. But we listen when the committees whisper, when the taxmen searched our trunks, when the soldiers took what they wanted, and we promised if it came to force we would not break. We feared not for our mortal bones, but for our children's shame. Two lanterns wrapped in cloth waited on the table, all trimmed low so the flame would not flare wild. We watched the river first, then the bridge, then the shoreline. The redcoats had taken the boats, they were rowing across under the moon. Every second felt like judgment. We signaled fast, climbed the stairs, hung the lanterns high in the church window. No glory, no stirring music, only choking fear of a rope around the neck. If the petrol burst through the wooden doors, the law called it treason, we called it necessary. We feared not for our mortal bones, but for our children's shame. Down in the street, Revere waited with a borrowed horse. Not some perfect myth of legend, just a man who knew the route and had the nerve to take it. He looked once to the tower, saw the light, and he rode like punishment itself toward Lexington to warn the ones who stood ready to fight back. The city did not stay quiet for long. Dogs barked, doors opened, someone shouted, "They are coming." Then came the sound of hooves and boots and musket stops, the early spark of a war that would take years to settle. And we knew the old life was gone forever. We feared not for our mortal bones, but for our children's chains. children's chains. For kings who live an ocean off still rule through iron reins. And if one small flame could break their grip, then God himself would know that common men with righteous hearts will burn against the snow. We slipped out a side door once the lanterns dimmed. No victory in our steps, only the weight of walking towards something we could not escape. The crown would hunt for names, neighbors would disappear. Some of us would die in skirmishes unknown to history. Unmarked graves, fields far from home. We feared not for our mortal bones, but for our children's shame. But the signal worked, the militia gathered. The first shot fired at dawn on the green. Not a glorious beginning, just fear, smoke, steel, and a line that could no longer be crossed. Years later, some told stories of heroes and destiny, of pride and certainty, but we remember the night as it was. Cold hands, shaking breath, one chance to call the people away, and a lantern flame bright enough to change the world, even if the men who lifted it were lost to time. We feared not for our mortal bones, but for our children's chains. Now that you know the story of the lanterns, wait until you hear the story of the cannons. Now that you know the story of the lanterns, wait until you hear the story of the cannons. Now that you know the story of the lanterns, wait until you hear the story